the Air Shirley Regional School Committee meeting on Tuesday, October 4th.
Recording in progress.
Right now it is 6:32. Those attending tonight's meeting should be aware that the meeting is also being audio and video recorded by APAC and ASRSD. Any audience members who wish to record any part of the meeting must inform the chair, who will announce the recording. This is to comply with the Massachusetts wiretap statute. The listings of matters are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. So I would call the meeting to order, probably now at 6:33. And if we could, want to do a roll call? Ms. Town?
Mr. Bresnahan?
Here.
Mrs. Danger? Mr. Quincy?
Here.
Mrs. Reshoots?
Here.
Mr. Rupert?
Here.
Ms. Stan? Here.
Thank you, ma'am. So if we could have the pledge of allegiance. Mr. Bresnahan, you want to lead that tonight?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. Do we have any public participation tonight from the audience or from internet? If anyone wishes to speak, if they would come to the podium and identify themselves and their address, please. Such an anxious group. You see the enthusiasm we have here? Is there anybody online, Michelle?
No.
Well, we started a little late. Do we need to get it a minute or two? What do you think? Okay? So seeing no public participation, we'll move to item 6, which has a number of individual items in it tonight that we should expound upon for a minute. First is that we will vote at the end. First, September 6, 22, regular session minutes for release. Are there any additions, corrections?
Do we see representatives?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Madam Chairperson?
Is
I think
Sanchez here?
Yes.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I skipped. Okay. So that's 1 in, not 2? Oh.
1 in, yes.
Okay. So we have our Air Shirley Regional High School student representative here tonight for her first meeting. So if you...
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can
We
hear you.
can.
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I'm in the car.
That's all right. I apologize. I was looking for people in the audience and I didn't see them.
You're
Okay, no worries.
If you'd like to talk about yourself a little bit and tell us who you are and a few things.
Sure. So I'm Anna. I'm a senior this year. I'm currently looking for colleges and doing my college applications. I do dance, ballet, jazz, and I'm very excited to be here. I'm very into this school stuff. I want to be a teacher when I'm older, so yeah.
Well, very good. So we're so happy to have you, and if you have anything that you want to tell us that's going on at the high school right now that you're excited about, or the class of 2023 is into, we'd be glad to hear it.
So this year, some things that I'm really excited about are, of course, my AP Lit class, since I want to be an English teacher. But I also really like the RAD class I'm taking, which is for self-defense and personal safety. So I really like those things this year.
Awesome.
Does anybody have a comment from the committee or would like to ask a question?
I would. So this is Erica. I'm really excited to hear about the RAD class. Do you feel like with you being able to feel a little bit more protected, it helps you as you kind of venture out and make some other decisions?
Oh, definitely. I find, well, at first I was a little nervous about it because a lot of it is like you have to learn how to do like defensive stances, and it's a little bit embarrassing at first, I won't lie. But after you get into it, you realize the importance of the class, and you know, as girl going into college life very soon, I think it's really important to feel protected.
Absolutely. I'm really proud of you, and I'm excited for the seniors to hear that you are taking those steps of safety, not only to defend yourselves, but just to become wiser about what you do and how you do it. So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, I'm so happy to be here.
Anyone else?
Hi, Anna.
Mr.
This
Bresnahan?
is Kevin Bresnahan. I'm just very interested to hear a little bit more about what you were hoping to learn from the experience, anything that you think you might be able to bring that we can learn from you. And lastly, just want to thank you for doing this.
I'm so sorry, could you repeat that? I couldn't hear you.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I just want to thank you for doing this with us. And I was very interested to hear a little bit more about some of the reasons why you chose to volunteer for this, if there's something that you were hoping to learn from the experience, and also interested if you think there's anything we can learn from you.
Oh yeah, I'm very excited to be here. I mean, just being me growing up in Air, Massachusetts, I've always been super involved in school stuff. You know, I was in PLT when I was in elementary school. I've always been part of student council. And I just want to learn a lot from you guys because, I mean, I hope someday I'll eventually be working with schools and, you know, with children and teenagers and everything like that. I also hope that I'm an accurate representation of this, like the students at the moment. So, you know, I'm very happy to be learning from all of you guys.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Hi, Anna, this is Mr. Quinty, and I just wanted to find out what you thought of the workload in the Mrs. Woods AP Lit class. I also wanted to find out if Sierra is being disrupted.
Definitely not, definitely not. I mean, Miss Witt's workload, I thought it was going to be a lot more, but, you know, I'm going to be an English major, so I think maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I really like everything she does, and Sierra's not being disruptive, don't worry.
Like,
Well, this is very good. So as you proceed this year, so college apps are going to be in before January 1st, right?
Yeah, I'm doing mostly early action for most of my schools just so I can, you know, prepare myself for making a decision pretty early on. Good.
Smart. Get it out of the way and don't let it hang over your head like most kids do until midnight.
Exactly.
So thank you so much for being here. Does anybody else have anything else they would like to bring up? I guess
Madam
not.
Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Anna, this is Dr. Renda, the
Dr.
superintendent. I just want to start recruiting you now if you are going to be a teacher. Make sure you come back to us to do your student teaching and pre-practicum work. We'd love to have you. And
Oh, of course.
you know, and when teachers, student teachers come in and do an excellent job, we find ways to hire them. So keep that in mind.
Oh, I definitely will. I definitely will.
Nothing like a job interview while you're still in high school, right? Sounds good.
National teacher shortage.
So we usually have our student representatives every other meeting, but if you feel there's something pressing, we could stand you every meeting too, but it might be too much, more than you want to do. So thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anything else from anybody on that? So we now have public participation has come in. Sorry, I skipped over. Under the consent agenda, we have a number of items that many of them have to be addressed. But the first one is September 6th, 2022, regular session minutes for release. Are there any additions or corrections to the September 6th minutes? Seeing no one jumping up, we'll go on. We have a donation of $750 from the Bullwinkle Law Officers to fund the new ASRHS Golden Panther Awards program. And is that law office a local law office, I'm assuming? Anybody know?
I don't know if the office is local, but they're residents of Air, Massachusetts. I know the Bullwinkle family.
Mm-hmm. Just nice to know. And, then on C, we have an anonymous donation to the field project in the amount of $26,639.20. We don't know where the 20 cents came from, but we'll take it. And if any, mentioning the fields now, both of those items, if anybody took a chance to look at the fields in the last couple of days, they are fantastic. And later, I think we'll be talking a little bit more about those. The next is the donation of a panther statue from the Quinty family. Since Mr. Quinty is here, could I ask you if there's a, is that totally installed and with the base, or is it just the statue? Because it doesn't elaborate here.
Yeah, the base is being worked out with the Fields Committee and Catalan for rock on top of, I think, our granite base. So the gift includes the statue and all the prep work required to mount the statue.
And is there a value for that, or any other thing that's attached to it?
By the time we get done, right now, they don't have hard estimates, but the first round of estimates, it looks like the total is going to be about $17,000.
Okay. Mr. Plunkett, do we need to know a value to accept a gift, or have a parameters on it or anything? Do you know?
I do not know the answer to that.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure by our policies, anything over 5 comes before us. Under 5 is recommended.
Right. So this is definitely over 5, thank you. I just don't know if we want to wait till there is a monetary value attached to it. How does everybody feel?
Vote, right? Is it?
I'm just curious, are any of these others coming up for a vote as well, or these are just recognizing the other donations?
Well, this is all part of the consent agenda, so we'll be voting, so we'll come back. We're
Or we
vote
could
at
pull
the end
out
of this.
things individually at
At
the
the
kids, how you want to do it, because we have some field trips and stuff, so any of those could be taken separately.
Yeah, it seems like, I think the Panther statue should be discussed separately.
Do you have a motion to that effect?
I'd like to make a motion that we discuss the Panther statue as a separate agenda item.
On this, at the end of this agenda, or?
Yes.
Okay. So we could, maybe the proper thing then would be to table that till the end of the agenda.
Okay.
Is there a second to that?
So I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So we will take that out of the consent agenda and put it at the end of the agenda for more discussion. The next item is a robotics out-of-state and overnight field trip for the 2022-23 school year. And we have Mrs. Pamela Clements here, who is the robotics assistant coach. Yay! And first of all, do you want to brag on how well you guys did last year?
We did really well last year, and we're here to ask for permission to try to do as well next year. So we actually went all the way to the World Championships, which were moved this year. First off, my name is Pamela Clements. As you said, I'm the assistant coach, and I live in Air on Westbrook Road.
Thank you.
So we finished 6th in the district of 180 teams, I believe, last year in the New Englands, and we were invited to compete in Houston, Texas in April. It was actually April vacation last year, so our students and mentors went to Houston for a 3.5-day competition, and we competed there. We competed in a grouping of 75 teams, and we finished at the end of preliminaries. We were ranked as 15th, and then we actually didn't go to the final rounds, but it's just a great event for the kids because there's not only a competition that they all participate in, they all have a job in when they're there, but there's also a college fair, there's companies recruiting kids, there's younger robotics groupings that are there, divisions. So there's a lot of other things to see and people to meet. So it's really great competition. So the 4 out-of-state or possible competitions, we're definitely registered to go to River Rage, which is in Manchester, New Hampshire, and that is at the end of October. And that is an off-season competition. So we actually get to play last year's game again.
Oh.
And we are able to compete. It's more casual. It doesn't go to points in your rankings or anything like that. So it's great for all of our new students. We've had 8 new students, and we're looking for 3 or 4 more to join. So and we always welcome new students, but it's great for the new students to see what this is all about before they get into the next season's game, which is it is released in the beginning of January, and then we will have 6 weeks to build a robot to compete from scratch. So it's very exciting. And then in the spring, we're hoping to go to out-of-state field trip. They have a week 0 event, so if your robot is ready before the official competition starts, that's also held in New Hampshire, so that would be an out-of-state 1-day field trip. And should we do well and compete, we're hoping to compete in 2 Massachusetts events, but should we get chosen to go to our rankings to go to the New England Championships, that will be held overnight at the Eastern States Exposition in Springfield. And that'll be in April, and then again, should we do well enough there, we'll go back to Houston in, again, April vacation. So those are the possible 4 events that we're asking for permission to go overnight.
So, is anybody, anything? Anybody?
Wait, and one quick second. Michelle actually has a video that she
good.
can show you. This is our chairman's video, which is put together by, we had Keziah Salter was our, produced this video, and then we had a couple of other students help. Katie Kilcommons was our awards lead, so she wrote the content for this video. But this is what we have to submit for, there's also judges awards in addition to robotics competitions. So it's just a quick video that we want to show you.
So was this last year's?
This is last year's,
competition?
yep.
Journey worth taking requires time.
Oh, wow.
Our first robotics journey is no different. We started down the path by bringing new ideas and STEM activities to our team and school district. Today, students joining Andromeda 1 have benefited from FLL, FTC, Summer STEM Week, Boy and Girl Scout activities, Hour of Code, and many other learning opportunities along the way. We helped create an innovation lab at our high school, and increased student interest has led to 6 new computer courses, including robotics, cybersecurity, and AP computer science. With our help, robotics happens every day with me in the ASRSD Regional School District. Seeing our team's impact on our school, Andromeda 1 set out to provide that same opportunity for all students in Massachusetts through Math First. Our goal is to bring robotics to every public school district in our state. We've donated $15,000 worth of FLL kits for new teams and partnered with First, fellow RC teams, and our local government to advocate for a bill providing grant funding for new teams. We are making progress as the list of districts we are finding without First programming has gone down from 100 to 43. Working together, we hope to be a model for other states supporting STEM education. And we know it will take work. Being an innovator doesn't come easy. Dean Kamen has said that the most consistent characteristic required for success is tenacity. Andromeda 1 has learned to stick with it, whether it is building a team from nothing, changing the role of STEM in our district, bringing First to every public school in Massachusetts, or building an amazing robot. Innovation takes time and effort. Andromeda 1 knows that the final result is worth every minute.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to talk about all the fantastic volunteers who put themselves above and beyond to get this program that's invaluable to these students who really see that they're doing something and producing something and learning stuff that they never would learn otherwise. And this is a very innovative program through, and what it adds to the school, I'm not sure we can put a a value on it. It's so great. So, and these people have done this time and time and time again, and it seems like they're ready to do it again, so thank you.
You bet, you bet.
But anything we can do to help, let us know, and
You bet.
we will.
Awesome.
Mr. Christie, this is all high school kids on your team, right?
All high school kids, correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So-
We have a new program, and when we first started, we had middle school kids, but
Mhm.
we have a couple of programs, a big program at the middle school now, the FTC program, so this one is just strictly for high school kids.
So kids can still sign up? It's not too late?
Kids can come
Can
all
jump
anytime.
anytime?
They can sign up in January. They
And,
can sign up, we, anytime they want.
And there's so many skills that are needed?
There are
it's
no
not
skills
just
needed, no experience
electronics
needed.
or mechanics, there's all kinds of scope
There's all kinds of
of
things.
things
We
to
also
do.
have, we run like a small
Publicity.
business. So we have some
Right.
people who are interested in working on our business team, anyone who wants to do photography, and as you saw, what Keziah and Annika worked on, and Katie to do a video. There's other videos that we can submit. So we have a lot of roles, that we have a lot of willing volunteers from our community, our school, who are ready to teach their skills. So there's a lot of soft skills that come out of this too. There's a lot of, both my daughters have gone through the program, and all of the kids that come through have learned teamwork and communication, and working with every competition, you're aligned with other schools and other school districts. So, today's alliance partners, tomorrow's competition. So it works really, really well. It's really good for the kids to get out there, and there's so much they get out of it. And this program, First Robotics, actually gives away, I think they're up to $300 million a year in scholarships.
Wow.
So it's a great program.
So do we have some other people here who are involved? Is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, my husband, Randy.
That's kind of who I was looking at. Randy, you want to put 2 cents in, or? I'll put you on the spot.
No,
How about
she
that?
sort of said it all. It's an awesome program that we've supported for many years, and we really believe that it's important. We'd love to have more participation by students, because, as Pamela mentioned, there's just so many things that can be done. So, you can be business teams, you can be a software team, you can be involved in, the sponsorships or the financial part of it, and it's you can sort of make whatever you want. When you have all these kids join, some will float in and some will float out, and then there'll be the regulars that come, all the time. But there's
gets something out of it.
everyone gets something from out of it, and it's good, because whatever they sort of digest and start to learn and understand, it puts them, in my opinion, that much further ahead, once they leave the buildings. So
Yeah, well, it's a great program, and the fact that we have the Innovation Lab is a result of the robotics program and a few other things. So it wasn't just all one way by any stretch of the imagination, and I can't imagine doing anything better, and to incorporate other people from the community is just, I'm sorry. Very good, guys. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Also just a thank you to both of you, but then also all of the other coaches that support that program. I'm desperately trying to get one of my kids to engage in that, because I truly think they learn so much, like you said, life skills and teamwork and working together, let alone all of the different opportunities around engineering, STEM, and everything. But I think it's a ton of work for the coaches and parents that keep that program going, but it's so invaluable. So thank you to you, and please pass on our thank yous to all the other coaches.
Absolutely.
It's invaluable.
Anytime you want to come and give us a demonstration, we'll take that too.
Yeah, all right, absolutely, we'll do that.
we do that.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
But if anybody knows of anybody that's looking for something to participate in, as Pamela mentioned, we're always looking for more kids to be
And
involved.
adults too, I'm sure we can always
Adults, too.
incorporate
Yeah,
another pair of
so
hands.
there's
Anybody knows
There's no-
Matt?
there's no deadline, so.
Okay. Keep it on the hot burner.
Thank you.
We also have another trip, overnight trip, field trip to the Twilight Cross Country Run in Barnstable Fairgrounds in Cape Cod, October, no date, just says October. I don't have the other sheet in front of me, I apologize. Is someone wish to speak to the cross-country team trip at all? I feel the details. I didn't see one of the coaches here. That's why.
This is an annual event. That's
Right,
what
it's
they
an
call
annual
it.
event.
It's a top flight kids going down, and it's down on the Cape, and they get to see kids from all across the state who are some of our top competitors. It's a great environment, and there's nothing but great information. I'm glad that they were able to contribute to it.
Yeah, they do a great job with this. We actually did not ask them to attend tonight because the agenda was rather packed. So
We need-
the date of the
I have
actual.
the dates in front of me. It's the 14th
Thank you.
and 15th
Yeah,
of
it's
October.
October 14th, they'll be back on the 15th in time for homecoming dance.
Well, all right.
These
And so
coaches
that's,
do
so
an
we're
outstanding
taking
job.
we're going to take the bus from the school, right? Was what transportation was listed here?
Yes, they're
Still
looking at
true?
taking the school down.
Okay,
Great.
all right,
Thank you.
thank you. So that leaves the warrant memo, and if you'll be patient with me, I'll put my glasses on so I can see the numbers and not have them wrong. We have AP warrant 1146 dated September 2nd, 22, for $1,161,068.33 for merchant services. We have AP warrant 1150 dated 9/16/22 for $9.60. We have AP warrant 1151 dated 9/16/22 for $336,878.98. We have AP warrant 1178 dated 6/30/22. Is that a closeout for 6/30? Is that a closeout of the previous year, last warrant
It
of
is,
the year?
that's FY '22.
That's FY '22,
Final.
right, final. Dated 6/30/22 for $36,960.90. We have two payroll warrants. Warrant number 6 dated 9/9/22 for $918,603.14. And payroll warrant 7 dated 9/23/2022, $988,634.56. And that is the warrant memo. If anybody has any other questions about the consent agenda, minus D.
Do we have any document in our folder for item C, the anonymous donation?
I didn't
Is there any
see one.
MOU
Is
or
there
anything?
anything attached to that?
I believe there is, but Michelle was not here.
Okay.
But,
Not this Michelle.
not this Michelle. Michelle Granger, who's our representative on the Fields Committee. I believe there's an MOU for it, and there is a specific, this is going to be going towards the baseball and potentially softball fields specifically, for some improvements to the fields. And I believe there's an MOU, but I can't say.
Do you want that added to the minutes?
That there's,
That's there?
I mean, eventually it'd be great to have that live in some folder that we can access.
Right.
But it was more of a like, am I missing something as I was looking through the documents?
No, but you're right. I didn't see it, but that's all right. So is there a motion on the consent agenda, please?
I make a motion that we vote on consent agenda.
As amended.
Oh, yeah, as amended, we'll table D to the end of the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second?
Any other questions or comments on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. New business, more fun here than we can ever have again. Spring 22 MCAS accountability presentation, Mr. Charlie Cleary, Assistant Superintendent, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had shared with you an MCAS presentation in advance of this evening's presentation for the school improvement plans from each of the schools. We used the same format that we had used from last year's presentation, which we thought was helpful. I think I was reflecting upon my first year presenting MCAS data to the school committee, and I feel like there were a lot of glazed looks and eyes after about the first 5 minutes with all the numbers and charts. So we tried to reduce that a little bit to provide kind of the bare bones so people could at least have an understanding of what the MCAS information revealed. Michelle, could you advance the next slide? So for 2022, the next generation MCAS happened at all of the grades. So everybody was doing computer array-based testing for grades 3 through 10. This year, we had talked in the past, and I presented to this committee about the accountability process. The accountability process for this year has been shifted because the Department of Education requested a waiver through the Federal Department of Education for the accountability process. And so essentially this year we have an accountability light process. So ultimately what's determined is the accountability score is based on performance from 2019, the last full year prior to COVID, and 2022, the first full year outside of COVID, with the full number of sections. You may recall in the past when we've gone through accountability reports, we've shown kind of progress towards targets and for all the subgroups and categories and so on. That for this year has been removed. They didn't provide any indicator targets or any progress ratings. Essentially what they're saying is that they're establishing a new baseline. And there's also a change to terminology that they included this year. In years past, they referred to different groups as economically disadvantaged. And under the Student Opportunity Act, DESE had changed this because there's a requirement to identify eligible students up to 185% of the federal poverty level. So they've changed the designation from economically disadvantaged to low income. Low income is more inclusive. It includes those students that qualify under SNAP or TAFDC or Department of Children and Families or in Medicaid, or they might be listed as homeless, or they're part of the supplemental low-income data collection group. So essentially that group has become a little bit larger in terms of identifying students. Some things to keep in mind as we go through this presentation. The last few years with COVID haven't been typical. And so there's no real reason to expect that the results are going to be typical when school has been atypical. And so it's important to note that for our students, the impact across the state has been pretty significant, depending on the grade level and the year of the student and depending on which years have been interrupted. But over this time, over the COVID period, we've had a lot of disruption in terms of having students going through remote learning or partial attendance. There's been, COVID protocols require excessive a number of absences for students or for teachers. So all of that plays into account. That being said, can you advance the slide, please, Michelle? So what we've done is we've provided a snapshot of our ELA performance. So the news that we have to share is good. Is that our performance over the past year in 2022, this is a different way of looking at the information. We're taking all of the performance, as we did last year, all the performance in all of our tested areas and all of the grades, and kind of lumped them all together and compared that, rather than go into every detail of every grade in each school and so on and so forth. So as a big overview, ultimately our students performed well. 48% of our students were in the proficient category or meeting or exceeding expectations, which compared to last year is a slight dip, but compared to the state is 7% above. So if you're looking at the graph that has the green and the dashed line on it, what we're looking for is kind of between 2019 and 2022, we're trying to get the shape a little bit of kind of like a check mark, if you can imagine that in your mind. Yes, Ms. Ray shoots.
The numbers across the bottom, I can't quite see them, are those
The numbers across the bottom are the years.
Thank you.
So it starts from 2017 and goes all the way to 2022. So what we're focused on is kind of that middle point from 2019, the year before COVID, and 2022. So there's across the state, the trend was that performance from 2019 to 21 declined, and then there was a gradual recovery from 21 to 22. So you'll notice that the state performance on ELA from 2019 to 2022 went down. And we kind of stayed consistent, if not improved slightly. So that's pretty good. Can you go to the next slide, Michelle? So we look at math. Again, looking at our meeting exceeding students, our students who have met proficiency. So compared to last year, our math improved by 11%. Compared to the state, we're 2% above. And as I had shared before, if you imagine that green line in the shape of a check mark, you can see from 2019 to 2022 that we're matched pretty well what a check mark should look like. So the reality is what we're looking at here is we had implemented Eureka Math, which we had shared with folks a couple of years ago, into elementary grades K through 5. We had already had it in place in our middle school for some time, but there were challenges transitionally from students from elementary one math program going into another in the middle school. And so last year was, as much as we've implemented this in a pilot process, and then we also had an interrupted year with COVID, last year was our first real full year implementing this with coaching, and we see a bit of a recovery in terms of student learning, which is what we were looking for. So we're pleased with that. Next slide, please. In science, technology, engineering, again, I'm focused on the top section first. So we had about 60% of our students who were proficient or meeting or exceeding expectations. So compared to last year, pretty significant improvement, 14% above, and then compared to the state, 17% above. So again, that check mark we're looking for from 2019 to 2022, pretty well declared. So we go to the next piece. The next piece of this is the accountability determination. So we talked about this at the very outset. When we look at accountability, the process that they use, using this light process, but inevitably the comparison still holds true. If we look at the trend over time, our accountability marks for each of our schools has improved. So in essence, what that means is compared to other similar schools, our performance for both achievement and for growth and for other indicators like chronic absenteeism and such, dropout rate, graduation rate, participation in advanced coursework, all of those, in all those categories, we have scored better. And we have continued to improve over the past 4 years. So looking at some of the accomplishments, if you're trying to get, our goal really is to kind of hit 75th percentile or above. And so we're making significant progress toward that. But if you look at where we were, if we just take an example of the middle school, where we were in 2018 to where we are is pretty significant increase in a short amount of time. So what we had noticed, one thing that we didn't include on here, and we wanted to make sure that we said it clearly, is a lot of our work last year was focused on building a sense of belonging and focusing on the social emotional needs of our students. And the success that we had in our performance is largely due to the work of our educators, our paraprofessionals, our administrators, teachers, counselors. They really took that to heart. They focused on the accelerated roadmap, a specific aspect of it, which focused on building a belonging and making sure we focus on the social emotional needs of our kids. We believe, the data is a little challenging to interpret, we believe that that was clearly a strong reference point for us as we move forward in terms of our success. Our accountability percentile improved across the board, as you saw on the last slide. The student growth percentile, which is looking at a student's performance from 1 year in one cohort to the next year in that same cohort. So our students, their growth was either average or high average, which is pretty good. In the past, we've had more of a distribution of low to high average. We still have, in some of our noticing, we still have achievement and growth gaps. And inevitably, as much as we're pleased with the results, like our accountability percentile improved, we still want our achievement to improve. Our overall achievement levels, we still want to make significant impact. I highlighted some specific areas that were strengths and weaknesses. I'm not going to go through each of these bullets that are here, but some things I wanted to highlight were high school ELA achievement, kind of blew it out of the water in terms of the performance overall. I know you don't have the results for each individual school, but they were over 80% of their students were meeting or exceeding expectations in ELA, which is pretty significant, and their growth was it was above the high growth target for the entire grade, the 10th graders. I wanted to highlight the Hispanic Latino achievement. So if we look at our performance from 2019 to 2021 to 2022, what we noticed is the subgroup, the Hispanic Latino subgroup, had actually maintained their performance during COVID, if not improved, as compared to other subgroups, which we found intriguing. We need to dig into that a little bit more to figure out exactly why that happened. Chronic absenteeism, even though the state changed their requirements, so in the years past it used to be chronic absenteeism was a 10% The number of days that you're missing from attending school, they increased it to 20% to account for COVID days. Our chronic absenteeism rates were significantly improved from the year before. Some relative weaknesses, we talked a little bit about kind of overall math achievement, and I'll highlight a little bit more of that in the next slide, but we still had some achievement gaps that were with our students with disabilities and in the low income categories. Some of the other areas are some more items and curricular areas, which I don't need to go into detail here. Michelle, if you could advance to the next slide. So in terms of our next steps, and this work is already ongoing, and some of this was came through last year because we forecasted this with some of our benchmark data and observations and evaluations and student performance data as we go through the year. But we need to do some more analysis at the building level, as I identified before in that previous slide. There are some things in there that we want to find out a little bit more of the why. How did this work out so well? Why did this make such an impact? So a lot of our curriculum leaders and our building principals are doing a lot of this work with our staff, and some of this will carry through and has already started during early release time and or some of our half-day time coming up in October. We're still going to continue with our district goals. Dr. Renda has talked about these ad nauseum for the past 2 years, developing and implementing a tiered system of social emotional support. It played a huge dividend in this past year, and we expect to see significant results moving forward. That students with disability achievement gap, we're looking to address that through the co-teaching process that we've started to implement this year. And we have an equity audit that's in place because inevitably if we can provide more equitable practices for our students, then inevitably achievement for all students will improve. You'll see tonight in each of the building presentations that each of the buildings have identified goal areas for themselves in their school improvement plans. Some of those are directly related to the MCAS data that we've just highlighted. Some are from other benchmark data. But as I said before, when we looked at some previous data last year, we already knew that math was an area that we wanted to focus on. So we've maintained our partnership and actually expanded the process a little bit to make it more coaching based with the Lesley University, their Center for Math Achievement. So they're providing coaching support for all of our teachers who are teaching in Eureka Math from kindergarten to 8th grade. So that process continues to take place. We've also expanded some of this coaching process by bringing in a high school math consultant to provide kind of an audit of our math program at the high school and also provide professional development to our high school math teachers, similar to the process that we're using for our grades K to 8. We'll always continue to provide professional development and try to make that as job embedded as possible. So we have coaching within the district. So we have coaches in literacy, math, we said is for the Center for Math Achievement. And we also have a coach for innovation/universal design for learning, which you've heard us speak about quite a bit over the past several years at school committee meetings. We'll have professional development that'll take place in equity. And one of the other pieces that I've mentioned in the past is the process of the standards-based report card. So we're going to be spending some time at our meeting in October with the teachers during our half day. Some portion of that is going to be benchmarking that so that we can hope to finalize that process for the second trimester and have standards-based report cards that are published moving forward. That way parents can get information as to how their students are doing. This is just for elementary, K to 5, how their students are doing on specific standards. That way it'll be more of an indicator for us moving forward as to how we can predict how students are going to do on standardized tests. That being said, I'll stop there. You can go to the next slide. So are there any questions that I can answer relative to MCAS at this point before we turn it over to the schools to share their school improvement plans with you all?
Appreciate folks trying to think. I appreciate the presentation, and I think the brevity and the ability to elevate the most salient points is appreciated, and I think I'm sure it takes a ton of work because I know that you all get a lot of data to work through. Can you remind me what instructional materials we're using in literacy? Only because I noticed that in our district next steps, feels clear what we're doing in math, and knowing that while we are ahead of the state in terms of the decline, that is an area that what are we doing in literacy relative to math?
Yep. Important to note relative to the decline data-wise, the state noticed, and we had similar pattern, is that the recovery from 2019 to 2022 in math was significantly better than it was for ELA in terms of the trend.
Right.
Which people thought was quite fascinating, frankly, because you would think that the foundational skills that students would miss would impact them longer in mathematics than it would necessarily in an ELA classroom. So that's an interesting trend. What we've noticed is that writing is the significant indicator there, is that folks are struggling with that. Some of our kiddos are struggling
Writing
with
versus
that.
comprehension.
Yep. So in terms of our literacy programs, and we've talked in the past, we talked about our shift a little bit in our elementary grades to focus a little bit more on the science of reading. And so there's no such thing as a perfect literacy program.
Right.
So I want to be clear on that. If there were, every district in the Commonwealth, and frankly in the country, would be using it. Unfortunately, there's not. So the reality is that we piece together a lot of the elements of the science of reading to put together a comprehensive literacy program. In grades K to 2, in fact, we actually expanded this to grade 3. We have a phonemic awareness curriculum with Hegarty. We have a phonics curriculum through Foundations, and we're using decodable text through Geodes, which is a subset of the Wit and Wisdom curriculum, which is from Great Minds, the same company that produces Eureka Math. In grades 3 to 5, we've had the essence of Fontes and Pinnell, a responsive literacy approach, which we have continued to refine and support because ultimately there's some pieces in there that we are missing in terms of alignment with the science of reading. And so we've supplemented a lot of our work on phonics, especially for our kids in 4th and 5th grade, because a lot of those kids, if you think back to the time that we were in COVID, they've missed a lot of their developmental phonics instruction that they needed in 2nd grade and 3rd grade to be effective readers in 4th and 5th. So we're supplementing with a research-based program with MegaWords to support the phonics instruction in grades 4 and 5, in addition to using Fontes and Pinnell as our primary focus, but we're using the mini lessons from that program and so on. In grades 6 through 8 for literacy, we're using StudySync, which is a research break and well-rated program through Ed Reports. That's been in place in the middle school for the past 5 years. And in the high school, there's not a concentrated, you'll be hard-pressed to find a high school literacy program. Most high schools will build their literacy program around anchor texts and then use the standards and supplement the resources, which is for the most part what we do.
Okay, great.
Ms. Spann.
I have a question. Based upon what I'm hearing you say, as far as what the state's finding with the students, is there any correlation between the lack of social skills, social cues, and phonics that would lead to the issue with literacy? Meaning these kids have been in their homes, depending on whether or not they have a sibling. My daughter, she doesn't have a sibling. Granted, she has adults around her, but when you have a regression like that, or maybe not that foundation, do you think that are you guys seeing the trend where that's what's affecting children with literacy? Because like for me, when I went to school, I was able to comprehend complex words because I heard them in the household, not necessarily because I read them out of a book.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything like that?
It'd be early for me to answer that. My preliminary review at this point, and there are plenty of others who are doing this too, is that we've seen, if I look at kind of relative strengths in literacy, I'm seeing that our students are actually doing pretty well with reading, quote unquote. So their vocabulary is actually pretty good. Their identifying of key information and details has been pretty good. Where we've been struggling, and it's hard to say across the board because every grade level is very different. So for example, grade 3 had a relative strength in writing, which is, we were like, wow, okay, that's pretty interesting. But in grade 4, writing was a relative weakness. And so in grade 5, relative weakness. Grade 10, writing, really strong relative strength. 6, 7, and 8, 8th grade was a strength. 6th and 7th, a little bit of a weakness. So there's not like a consistent trend, except to say that those middle years, it seems like students may have missed out on some instruction that would have helped them to support in their writing. Okay. And that trend is consistent across the state. In fact, what they noticed is that on a lot of the writing responses, that they had an increase, nearly double the percentage of students who literally scored 0 points on their writing from 2021 to 2022. So it was remarkable to see that. So trying to figure out if our correlation is the same. I don't think that it is quite that much, but we did have some students who didn't score points. Sure.
You can make an inference that that is actually an issue, though. There is some research, it used to be the 6 million word gap, now it's the 30 million word gap. I don't know if anybody has read that, but that specifically talks about children coming from low-income household as compared to students coming out of a home where at least one person has a college degree. They start school. It used to be 60 million words. I was trying to get the research study. It's 30 million words now. So you could inference that that type of gap or the lack of that type of vocabulary could have happened during COVID too. But I think we'll probably see research about that coming out within the next couple of years.
Okay.
So be happy to address it then, now that you have me interested in that.
Jim?
Just a couple of reflections. I think the overall trend is good, and I think a part of that has to do with Dr. Malone pushed hard for very early, even preschool advances and footsteps and those types of programs to get kids more energized in that. And I think we're seeing some of the benefit of that. I always struggle to say anything of value in seeing what happens at the elementary schools, because I think I have so much trust in the administrative teams because they've been around for so long that I kind of like, good for you. Do what you're doing, because that's like herding cats down there sometimes. With the middle school, which, you know, struggled for a fair amount of time, had the last couple of years with Mrs. AP and Mr. Rowe, they really jumped on something. I don't know. They switched a bit, and things are really accelerated. And at the high school level, the thing that always amazed me is that we've always had very high ELA marks in the high school. And the astounding thing was that, you know, the marks that were coming out of the middle school were substandard, a lot. And I don't know what happened between, you know, the 8th and the 9th, 10th, but we were able to take that stuff. And that gives me a great amount of confidence that we'll recover from our COVID time quicker than a lot of other places, because I think we have some experience doing that kind of stuff. So overall, I'm very impressed by the performance of the district across the board.
Thank you.
If anybody else has something. So we've reintroduced the world of phonics, which magically just went away one time. Now it's come back. So as we look across our grades from, say, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and up, they never had phonics, right? They never did any phonics work.
To be clear, we've had foundations and phonics instruction in this district predating me. So we've had foundations for Mrs. Lewis, Mr. Deppie, I'm looking at 13 years. So we've had, so foundations is ultimately the phonics curriculum that we've used. So we've had it for quite a bit of time. I think that
see good results then, because it's
the challenge
embedded.
is the connection between the phonics that we teach and some of the other expectations that some programs have for reading. And so sometimes those don't connect. And in fact, sometimes they work against one another. So, but I'm sorry to interrupt your question. I wanted to clarify.
No, that's why because looking at the state things and looking at the numbers and knowing the numbers we're dealing with in numbers of students, small numbers of students can totally sway our results one way or the other. And so if instead of looking at the state, looking at our grade levels and how they're doing, considering the previous things we've done, you know, looking internally is maybe more effective than worrying about testing us against whoever else happens to come down the pike today. And because we can have such a derivation either way, because of the population that we have that year or that class, that's an interesting view to take to see if we lost something, if we need to pick it up later or something like that.
Yeah, when the data came out, it was difficult to actually interpret it well because the state data was not finalized. And when you looked at it and you tried to make a connection between the two, we were frankly confused. And so the state data, when that was added and having the meeting with the state, it was actually helpful. It put things in perspectives. So in most years, I would agree with you. Like looking at the state trend, we can look at our individual grade levels and kind of figure it out. This year, without the state trend, it was really difficult.
All right. Without the state trends, it's just a data point. Looking at the state trends, you can see, you know, where we're matching compared to our neighbors. And I think what it says is that the teachers and then these people sitting in the audience did an excellent job of providing whatever it was that individual students need, whether it was a social emotional need, a mental health need, an academic need. I mean, they exhausted themselves, teachers, paraprofessionals, administrators, to do that. And I think if you talk to really anyone in education, they'll probably say that last year was the most difficult year of their career. And I am included in that opinion. And what it really says is that these people, and the teachers and the paras, did a better job of filling those gaps than most of the other cities and towns. And I give all the credit goes to the teachers, paraprofessionals, and administrators, because they didn't jump into changing things. They didn't jump into when there was a crisis, when things came up. There were conversations, people were calm, they made decisions based on what was best for kids, and I think it paid off. With that being said, we have a lot of work to do, right? Because we have to look at our internal data and look at the achievement, and it can be the achievement, kids can perform better than that. And I think if we can combine meeting the social emotional needs of students with really great instruction, then this district really is limitless in where it can go. And we're on the verge of that.
I think we all agree with that. But you know, I'm just waiting with bated breath till the state decides they're going to change all of the curriculum and restudy the science or whatever, and then we'll all be jumping through hoops to do it.
It's like the weather in New England, right?
Right. Wait a minute, it'll change. There you go.
I think just like one thing I would add, like looking at the next steps, there's nothing on it that's surprising, which I think is a good sign, and it feels aligned with the work that's been happening. The reality is state standard scores generally matter more to real estate agents than they do to people in the building doing the work. And so I appreciate the work that's happening, and I also appreciate that we're not, as a committee and hopefully not as an administration, having knee-jerk reactions to what is a moment in time. And I mean, frankly, there's a lot better data that you all have in your building to actually inform instruction. So
it's really affirming the direction that we are choosing to go in.
With MCAS, we try not to get too high or too low with like our tone or our presentation. It's just, this is the data, this is what it tells us, this is what we learned from it, this is what we're going to do with it. And I know that seems odd, but we'd rather kind of stay as my wife describes me, as staying in the band. With MCAS presentations, we try to stay in the band.
I want to say I really appreciate what I'm seeing here. Anytime you can see an early benefit or you can reap an early reward for the work that you all are putting in, each and every one of you, I think is great, because I was questioning, when are we going to see that? We all, I'm very far removed, but everybody was in this together trying to figure out, are we doing what's best for the kids? And clearly this is the first data that we have where we can say, yeah, we did our best by them. And you may know in your heart, but when you see it in numbers and you can represent it well, I think it speaks highly of each and every one of you, and of all of the teachers and the effort that you put into it, the blood, sweat, and tears. So I want to say thank you very much. It's nice to come in and see MCAS, and we didn't know what we were going to get, but when I look at these numbers and remember the meetings from last year and everybody really was trying their best to put the students at the center, it's clear that education and every child was considered when you look at these numbers. So I'm really excited, I'm really happy. Yes, we have a long way to go, but if for nothing else, this shows us that we're on a steady course. And I really appreciate it. Just want to stop and say thank you, and thank you to your staff.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you, Mr. Clary.
Sure.
I'm not sure too many of us envy your in-depth study and analysis of these things.
I think one of the great dangers in people serving aggregate sports is that, and it happens even in elementary schools. You start looking at what is the district doing, you start shopping around to see what is going to happen. But I just wanted to parents who have kids in the elementary school or in the middle school looking at what exactly they want to do. if you take a look at what we've done, it's like, and I can tell you, we have graduates who are in. We have graduates who are Carnegie Mellon, graduates who are Armonk, we have graduates from McGill. So if you feel like your kid is a high flyer, and hopefully you all feel like your kids are high flyers, you have to know that we are dedicated to make sure that the opportunity for them to achieve is here. You know, we are in a racially and economically diverse area. When you get that, you have to take a look at exactly what we're doing, and at any point in your child's educational process, you can access the administration in the school that you're in, or in schools that you're considering, like the middle school or the high school, and any of them would be more than happy to show you their program of studies and exactly what is available for you here. So if you're going to be limited, it's not going to happen here.
Well, speaking of that, if we could move on to the key wonderful thing of tonight, which is the presentations of the school improvement plans. And I don't know if this was done alphabetically or age-wise or whatever. I don't know if Mrs. Lewis and Mr. Deppy did odds and evens to see who would go first. But Laura A. White, presentation of school improvement plan by Mrs. Beth Lewis. And if you would introduce anybody that you have.
It was
with
rock,
us.
paper, scissors.
Huh? Thank you.
What's wrong? You want me to move that? No, he's doing a great job. Thank you.
All right, you ready?
You need me to adjust that while you're at the computer?
We are working on the technical applications here.
Oh, yeah, I like the.
We can go to the next slide. Okay. All right, well, good evening, everybody, committee members, Dr.
Good evening.
Brenda, and other guests. We're happy to present our school improvement plan from Lori White Elementary School. Alongside ASRSD is my assistant principal, Courtney Knoll. We've been a team for what, 3 years now? 3 years? All right. Anyway, I'd like to talk first about some of our celebrations. And one of the first things on our list was that we restructured our Student Learning Center, which for those of you who don't know what our Student Learning Center is, it is the classrooms in our building that house our students with complex disabilities. And our number of students with complex disabilities in that Student Learning Center increased. As a matter of fact, it doubled in size in the last few years. So we put our heads together, we found that we needed to split the, at least it's doubling in the lower program. We have a K-2 and a 3-5, and split the K-2 program, which is where the population was the heaviest, into 2 separate programs. It gave us a chance to split students by specialization of their disability so that we can specialize our support for those students in a more succinct way. So I have to say, after about a month of school, so it's only been this way for a month, we have witnessed the fruits of our labor, and our SLC students are thriving in a much better planned program. And I'd like to thank the SPED director, Tara Bozick, and of course the superintendent for supporting us in this much needed change to give our students, our SLC students, the best educational environment possible. So it's really working out quite well. Another thing that we took on was, you see up there, peaceful playgrounds. We also have a packet in front of you. So according to our data, you're going to be so shocked that a majority of our office referrals come from playground incidents. See the shock look on your face. We stated we wanted to improve playground behavior last year in our last year's SIP program. So
we decided to go with a company called Peaceful Playgrounds, and we ordered equipment. It also came with training for our staff and other resources from the company. But due to the supply chain problem, we did not receive a lot of the equipment to make it happen during this past school year. But everything finally did come in at the end of the school year. And so we invited our parents during the summer. We had about I don't know, 10 to 12 parents help come and revamp the playground. And then we had United Way on the day of caring, which was, I think, the 15th, September 15th. They finished much of the playground. Michelle, do you mind just flipping to the next slide so you can see what I'm talking about? So what we did, the Peaceful Playground promotes many things, but the premise is to offer a lot of choices, such as pavement games to keep the students engaged in play. We painted several games on the pavement and increased play equipment. Staff participated in a training on one of the opening days, it was provided by the Peaceful Playground people. And it helped give us a more cohesive approach to monitoring play and addressing playground issues. So the packet that I provided you, you can look through. It shows the tenets of how we run recess based on this Peaceful Playground philosophy. We still encourage students to play as they wish. We just want to give them more choices with the hope that our office referrals will decrease. So in that packet, you can see we also added disc golf, and we were lucky to have Casey White, who is a disc golf champion, I think nationally, and he is also a Laura White graduate, and he works for a company, and they came out and they taught the kids all the moves and things that go with disc golf. So they left us some cages and we set them up, so that was added to our playground. Kids are pretty excited. Definitely see them using these items. We're videotaping kids using them so that we can show them all the rules. Like you have the rules to every game. One of the big things is conflict. So, you know, when kids get on the playground, they say, no, this is the way we play it. No, I play it this way, and you have conflict. So there's one way we solve. We told them there's only one thing you can do to solve the problems, and that is to use rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Are you ready? Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Okay. So the kids know that. They've been trained that they actually only get to do it once, or whatever we had to tie there. So. And solve the problem, and there were other ways, talk walk, or rock, paper, scissors, shoot. So it seems trivial, but it really isn't, and it really is a big part of learning at the elementary level. So we're hoping and praying that it has a great impact. The next thing, we might go back again, I think. Yeah. The next thing I'd like to highlight is that we actually added a school psychologist. We had Dr. Garrett solo flying for the last few years, and we added a school psychologist who is also specializing in our student learning center. Again, that was the program that has doubled in number. And those students have a lot of needs, and we are so excited that we have somebody specializing in helping them this year, as well as our typical students in the school population. So it's also great that they service students in Tier 2 and Tier 3. They all work together on that, but their expertise has been very helpful. The next thing I'd like to talk about is that we are offering enrichment programs. We put out several surveys from our district, and that was one the parents really wanted to see. Of course, COVID put a damper on that over the last couple of years, but they're up and running. I don't know, I think we have a hair care one. That's not everyone. And we have our Lego robotics. There's a hip hop club. I can't remember the other ones. I just put them in the calendar. But we're excited, and I know the kids are too. So the next bullet, the 73% of our students in K-3 met or exceeded benchmark according to our end of our year DIBELS assessments. We use this data throughout the year to inform instruction, provide interventions to students, and build our win blocks, which is essentially a block of time where groups of teachers take all students, divided by a specific skill, and hone in on that skill until they master it. Then they are moved to an additional group as needed. The groups are fluid, and it's based on need. This was very successful, given students started at 48% at the beginning of the school year. I feel we are building law from the ground up and hope to see the impact of this in our upper grades. As Mr. Cleary alluded to earlier, that those phonics skills are significant, that we need to use those and implement those, and that was kind of missed a little bit along the way with COVID, and so I hope we're regaining ground with this, and this is definitely evidence showing that we are. So, Mrs. Knoll is our little win block expert over here. As I just alluded to in the DIBELS, the win block is simply the formation of targeting those skills with a group of teachers and students mastering them and moving along. And that has been very successful, thanks to Mrs. Knoll's establishment of that. Our PBIS program, Mrs. Knoll's going to talk more about that later, so I'll skip that one. And as you saw in our accountability report, we did actually improve in that area. Go to the next slide. Okay. We still have a lot of work to do. We need to increase our achievement scores in English language arts and math. We've been proactive using early release scores from math, from MCAS, and the end of the year data from last school year to make some decisions that hopefully will increase our proficiency. So as you can see on the slide, we are engaged in a couple of co-teaching models in our building, which will have a profound impact on students with disabilities and all students in general. As stated in the slide, we're using more evidence-based reading programs and strategies. As mentioned earlier, regarding the win block and other uses of assessment data, this allows us to target specific skill needs for students. We've changed our grade 4 and 5 structure from a 3-teacher team to a 2-teacher team, and what that does is increase time for each subject. And we made some staffing changes, basically placing with people with more specified skills in specific subject areas to improve student outcomes. So I can't do a slideshow without pictures. I just think that it really adds a lot. This is just a day in the life of our students at lunch, at specials, in class, small group instruction, shopping at our PAWS store, and just up in the right-hand corner, my favorite picture, just walking down the hall with one of our related service people. Okay.
Sure. So in reviewing our student performance data, it indicates that we need to improve the performance of students with disabilities in both the areas of English, language arts, and math. Mrs. Lewis alluded to a co-teaching model that we're launching in 2 grade levels, but we're also implementing strategies and supports from these trainings in all of our classrooms. One of our classroom teachers looped this year from grade 2 to 3 to continue supporting students in the looping model, which research shows will help to support increased student achievement. We have special education teachers and our reading specialists who are completing training in specialized reading programs to work specifically with students with intensive reading needs and to support our movement towards evidence-based practices in reading instruction. As we stated, we're using more targeted and data-driven assessments in the areas of both reading and math to identify student breakdowns and support student needs more specifically. When building our master schedule and the individual teacher schedules, the paraprofessional schedules, we really prioritize students with special needs in order to maximize the support offered in the classrooms and to meet different needs of our students with disabilities for our general education teachers, our special education teachers, and our paraprofessionals. Yes. You can go, yeah.
There's a great staff right there. Okay, perfect. Sorry, I gotta turn my page here. PBIS continues to be a highlight for law. I'm sure that anyone who has a student at LAW here, those green pause and golden pause highlighted. All of our staff are trained in this Tier 1 program where we explicitly teach our behavior expectations for our students across the days. We use common language and we reinforce students for following behavior expectations. Students can earn green pause for meeting or exceeding behavior expectations anywhere in the school building and even on the school bus. We launched this year with a PBIS kickoff where students and staff rotated to various parts of the building to really ensure that the same message was delivered to our staff and our students for what our expectations are across the school day. Each month, we have a PBIS team and we analyze the student behavioral referral data to identify behavior of patterns of behavior, whether that be a type of behavior that we're seeing or a location. We alluded to that with the playground a little bit. That tends to be a focus area for us. And this really helps us to intervene and identify areas of support that our students might need. Additionally, reviewing our behavior data referral, our behavior referral data supports us in identifying students who might need Tier 2 or Tier 3 supports. We have our pre-stat system, we have our student support group, and our STAT process, which is our student teacher assistance team. So these students might need more individualized or frequent reinforcement, and monitoring students with this data supports us to make informed decisions for them.
So open house, we were so thrilled to have a real open house this year. Great. Really felt more connected to the parents. Just a few snapshots from that. Did they say snapshots anymore?
Snapshots. Snapchat.
All right, and this is our last goal, improving community connections. Of course, COVID put a damper on our community connections between homeschool and the outward community these past few years. We did manage to run a few in-person events for families at the end of last school year. We would like to continue this throughout the school year this year. We've already proactively changed the way we seek out volunteers by setting up a sign-up at open house and having a year's worth of events available so that parents can volunteer. So it gives them time to think about it and have time to consider it. Open house in person alone help build better relationships, as I said. I'm also offering principal coffee every month. I don't really drink coffee, so I hope they bring me a Diet Coke, but I am going to be doing that so parents have an opportunity to come in and have a chat about anything they want to talk about. I'm going to offer that 2 different times. So the first month it'll be in the morning, the second month it'll be after hours, so to represent everybody else. We have more parents on our school council this year. Since I've been at LAW, it's been COVID. I had about 6 months of no COVID, and then it was COVID, and I just haven't had that connection, and I was so excited that we had 2 or 3 new people that are signed up, and I'm very excited about that. All these events sometimes require sponsorship, so we will be making an effort to reach out to community members for assistance. We already have connections with the Rotary, Veterans, Police, and Fire, and various businesses in the area, but of course, there's always room for improvement. And that is the end. Oh, of course, Holden Woodburn is awesome, great, beautiful day, and lots of administrative support, staff support, and kid support, of course.
Should I just go down the line and give you guys an opportunity and that makes it easier, or?
Sure, we can do that.
Sure, Erica, go ahead.
So first of all, awesome presentation. First of all, your goals look very thoughtful, and I like that you have the evidence-based practices behind it. I have been seeing more and more as I'm doing more research that the more you have the evidence-based practices alongside expertise and a passion to do what you're doing, you definitely reap the benefits and the rewards of it. So I'm excited to see what happens. I still remember your presentation from last year, believe it or not. So I'm really excited to see you focusing on more and then using the opportunity of us coming out of COVID to do more. So thank you.
Thank you.
Not too many questions, but yeah, just comments. Thank you. I truly do believe, like Dr. Renda said, the last couple of years for educators have been such a challenge. So appreciate the presentation and all that you've been doing previously, and certainly all the effort you're going to be putting in this year. So thank you all very much. Thank you to your staffs.
Well, my family loves or my children, I should say, love the PBIS system. My laundry machine does not love the green paws in the laundry.
Mine either.
But I guess it is absolutely, it's worth it. I appreciate the presentation. I guess a question I would ask is, when you look at the plan and like the goals of the leadership team, what's the thing that the teachers are most excited about? Like in terms of where you're prioritizing time and energy, what's the benefit for teachers? What are they excited about? What are they like, thank goodness this is at the top of their list?
Well, I think definitely the PBIS part of the initiatives is something teachers really like because it helps them run a organized, peaceful classroom where they can succeed in teaching. I don't know if they're that excited about I didn't talk about our walkthrough initiative, but we actually increased our personal goal for Mrs. Knoll and I to walk through and get in the classrooms more. Sometimes some of the challenges or barriers for that were staff absenteeism, and we would be
You were
She
teaching
took a
most
bottle
of
wash,
us, right?
yes, right. And it did limit our time in the classroom, but we shifted some scheduling. We tend to be kind of controlling too, so we decided we can't do that, and we have to let people do their thing, and we have to do our thing. And we think that will be, I shouldn't say they don't like that. I think it's been a great, kind of give them a glow and a grow. That's what we call it. And the glow part is giving them pointing out something fabulous. And then if not always, but if there's something we feel we can give a little suggestion about, then we do that. But I think for us personally, it's showing us trends of instruction. So, I don't know if that answers your question. I think they are definitely excited about, every year, about trying to do better for our students.
I would say
Mr. Quinty.
You do many important things there, but one of the things that carries great benefit throughout all the 13 years that they're in the district is this soft bond that you form with parents in the elementary schools. The lighter social events. I had to sing.
Can I walk over next to you? I have a hearing loss.
Anytime you want.
I need microphones in these meetings, folks.
We need a room where the sound is not lost to the ceiling.
So, the soft contact type things, I remember being in the cafeteria singing songs from Mulan at the top of my lungs because they watched the movie. And you can't advertise what movie it is, but if you have a game, you can play the movie and it's not really a problem. So that sort of stuff, because the kids are there, the parents are there, the parents make other connections. And those groups of parents are the same parents that are going to be handed out from Searle, and they're going to go up to the high school, and they're going to be running on blocks. You take a look at some of the parents that are doing stuff at that level. I don't know, or right cafeteria watching Mulan.
Yeah.
So that type of stuff there, and it forms a bond. It's always hard. I think the hardest part is that you start out when your kids are friends with some other kids,
Right.
and you're like, hey, really good. These parents are really fun and all that sort of stuff. And your kids aren't friends anymore, and you got to go like, well, I guess I'll see you later because you got to move with where they're going to go. But that kind of stuff that you do to build community at the elementary school carries huge benefits to the middle school and high school.
Totally agree.
We appreciate that.
Thank you. I have to say that I attempted to attend the open house And when I drove around 4 square
Saying you
blocks
couldn't find any
and
parking.
couldn't find a parking place and decided I really needed to go home and have dinner instead, but you couldn't find a parking place. There was nothing. I looked at the ball field, I went up here, I went down there, I went this road and that road, and there was no place to park, and I went, I'm going home. Because I'm not gonna be able to get in the front door if I can't even find a parking place. So obviously you've made an impact with that type of attendance at the open house and excitement. So no parking places are probably good.
So the line getting in was around the block.
We were
It
thrilled.
was,
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's why I can't even park the car. And I'm not walking 5 blocks from the fire station to get there, so I guess I gave up too soon. But, no, thank you very much. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Yep.
I'm going in the order that it was presented to me. I'm doing no favoritism to anybody. This is how it came through the packet. Page Hilltop Elementary, we have the principal, Mr. Frederick. Is it Frederick? Is that right?
Yeah.
Debbie?
Yes. George, it's been a lot of years, come on. Mr. Lucinski, my assistant right here, we're gonna co-thing.
That's Matthew and,
Thank you for being, I know you probably rather us coming here with kids and showing off stuff, because they're always much cuter than us, but. we're
we
gonna
like
do
the
our best.
games too, you know, and snacks work.
Ready, Michelle?
Yeah.
That doesn't look very good. Next slide, please, Michelle.
Really?
Slide's not up.
Oh, it's not going. Oh.
Thank you very much. Any questions? No. Thank you. So again, we started off with celebrations and challenges. As everybody knows, the main challenges was dealing with COVID the past few years and everything it is, from increased absenteeism to the lack of live activities, to the barriers to learning, the parents' struggles. And believe it or not, big thing was just the lack of social time. And kids at lunch was just not what it used to be when they all had to sit by themselves and not move around. But a lot of celebrations too, as Dr. Brenda said it one of his first things. I mean, so much goes to the staff. The staff rose to the challenge and they found ways to keep kids involved and educate the kids. Expanded SEL and literacy teams were really thrilled this year. We've increased some new staff and some in both SEL and literacy teams, and some new goals and initiatives. Very excited about going to do that. Moving forward, weekly s'mores, which is our parent newsletter, goes out every week, and we average between 800 and 1,200 views or hits each week, so we know people are watching it. And then celebrated, we started last winter with a live chorus concert outside, because we couldn't be inside, and we thought we're not going to let that stop us, so we went outside. It was a little bit cold, that's okay. We had lighting, and we got to eat, we had some chocolate, and a great time. And then by the end of the year, we were returning back to a lot of the live events that, we've been so fortunate to have, as you can see here too.
So our first goal was to use data resources and evidence-based instructional practices to improve overall student achievement. A couple big things we did this year was we adopted the DIBELS 8th edition as one of our reading assessments in 4th and 5th grade, which we now have K through 5. We regularly progress monitor for students that are below and well below benchmark. Last year we saw our kindergarten going to 1st grade, we achieved 77% at or above benchmark, rising to 1st grade. And 1st grade going to 2nd grade was roughly 70%. And we maintained those over the summer for the most part as they rose to their next grade level. Similarly, we have our WIN block in K-5. It's a half-hour daily intervention. We strategically, I worked with our two of our three reading specialists to take that DIBELS data, form specialized groups that are targeting specific skills. We flooded these intervention blocks with our UA support staff, our paraprofessional librarian, our reading specialists. So there's extra staff in these WIN blocks to help target specific interventions. Math, we're continuing to partner with Eureka. Fred and I met with our building-based coach a couple weeks ago. She also met with a teacher from each grade level, and we have our next cycle going in November. implement CERN to supplement Eureka, trying to look at ways to incentivize that for students at home. And our co-teaching, which two of our teachers came last year to school committee at the bottom, first grade pair, Nicole Berry and Rachel McKillop. So they're continuing and really loving the whole experience. And then at the top, we have our new to Air Shirley is Jen Burke on the left. She is our new third grade special education teacher. And Lynn Oppenheim, who was our special ed teacher, going to be our special ed co-teacher, but now is our general teacher in third grade. So two great teams that are really loving the model.
And looking to continue development of our core values program, which is obviously very important, as we know, the SLS is important as the academics, because you can't teach the kids without their values. We started off the year, we had behavior expectations, we had 4 categories. We had CAF, bathroom, bus, and recess, and each myself, Mr. Rutinsky, and our 2 counselors, we each took one of those zones, and we had all the kids in all the grades rotate through all 4 zones. We could discuss, how to be, our motto was be kind, be safe, be ready to learn. And we showed them how that applied to everything from bus to recess to even the bathroom, how they keep that going. Really looking forward to this year to expanding our work with the Lynch Leadership Academy, based off of the notes they had in the equity audit, things that we're doing well and things that we can work, and we're very excited about that, and continuing to implement diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives as we move through. So our end goal is, to cultivate a cultural aspect, diversity, equity, inclusion to everybody, cultural competency for our staff. We saw last Friday, we had our first community assembly with a student of the month, where we recognized every teacher, including our UA teachers, selected one student that they think exemplifies those 3 parts of the mantra that we go through, and they all got a special t-shirt that had the back said, be kind, be safe, be ready to learn, and the front said student of the month, so they all kind of went home very proud, very knows. So. Next slide, please. And next coming up there too is our fostering partnerships with the stakeholders, because again, we all are working together to make this successful in our school community, we always know, and we want to develop that sense of belonging to everybody, so everybody who comes into Page Hilltop feels that they are a part, a valuable part, a part with a voice, and a part they can share the experiences. We're so thrilled to go back to live, starting down with our youngest of the young kids not even in school yet, the family partnership, and I'll go back to do live play groups in the school. Welcoming, as you see that group of students down on the bottom, those are all of the new students that moved in recently this year, and as a part of welcoming them and making them belong in our community, they received a t-shirt and a water bottle, and they got that, from us as a gift to welcome to the community as they come to do. So, and we're looking to, especially to EL population is growing as it always is, so we're looking to include them, make sure that they know, make sure everything we do goes home translated, so that they understand that they need live translation. We make sure that we make that happen, so that they all, again, feel that they're part of it too, and they belong.
Our last goal, developing the CASEL 5 core SEL competencies in all students. We talked about how SEL is going to focus this year. In our master schedule, we strategically built out at the beginning of the day a 30-minute SEL block for all grades K through 5. That starts on Monday mornings with a second step lesson, and will continue throughout the week with a couple smaller second step lessons, and then some other teacher developed lessons. So that's the tier 1 strategy that all kids are receiving. We continue to, with our 2 new school adjustment counselors who are pictured there, they are running some tier 2 groups, kids that are struggling with anxiety, work avoidance. They have different things that they're targeting, K through 2 and 3 through 5, that they're pulling kids during that wind block that maybe the academics aren't a priority right now. We need to focus on the social and emotional needs. So they're kind of doing that, which has been a great and well received by the teachers and the parents. We have an NTSS team that focuses on SEL, and we meet every Tuesday with Fred and myself, our psychologists, our school adjustment counselors, and Lorraine Wilson. We're working right now with one of our SEL consultants to figure out what are our kind of next steps in developing our tier 1 system of SEL. K through 5 right now, we now have our student reset spots, they're called, in each homeroom. So it's an area of the classroom so that kids, they're just feeling dysregulated, they can go access the reset spot instead of having to go out of the classroom and take a walk elsewhere, which might lead to more learning loss or just time away from the classroom. And we're looking at ways to expand that possibility because we've heard from a couple individual families and teachers that like the UA classes didn't get them, so we're looking at how we can incorporate them in there as well. And in terms of like discipline, we're looking at how we can make more restorative approaches of regard discipline. We work with David Kendall, who the high school has loaned us on a couple of occasions to work with some students to run some circles to kind of problem solve through like what actually happened instead of you get a detention or whatever it is, a lunch detention. So,
Thank you. Open to questions if anybody has any.
Oh, we're gonna start with me again? Okay.
You can say pass, you know, you don't have to be, you can say pass.
Yeah, first of all, great presentation, really exciting. I really liked goal 3. Rihanna came in 3rd grade the last 3 weeks because she was transitioning from private school, and she still talks about getting her water bottle, getting her t-shirt, and that was Mrs. Lynch's last year, and they created this little book that said, I think you're brave, and we literally still have it. She has it on top of her dresser. So just her experience, even though we were just transitioning from private school, was really, really important. And gave her a sense of belonging, even though it was the end of the school year, so that when she came in 4th grade, she was already engaged with the students and really excited to go to school. So I'm glad to see that continuing because I know firsthand, how great that can be and what an impact it makes.
It is very important. And along those lines, if you look in our cafeteria, everybody that's been in those, there's 100 flags. There's flags for every country that we can think of. Parents come. We always offer, if your family's flag's not up, they tell me, we'll buy it, you give it to me, we'll hang it up. And so they're all over the place. And just the other day, after open house, little first grade came, Mr. Deputy, my flag's not there. Okay, which country? She was Colombia. Couple of days, 2 days later, we had a Colombia flag and hanging up there. So.
I happened to mention that he didn't have the Sicilian flag. It's up there now.
Now we just need a kid from, never mind.
So fantastic to see the events in person, all the families coming together again. That's great. I guess I've graduated from Page Hilltop. I don't, but those were great events, very well done, and they brought everybody together. So thrilled to see that happening.
It is. That's our biggest thing this year is coming back live, and like Mrs. Lewis and Mrs. Knowles said, open house with them. And we probably had upwards of 1,000 people. We started with the family picnic, we always do, and then we were going all through the building. And a lot of former kids, students and graduates came to us. It was just an exciting way to start the year, and we're looking forward to a lot of that this year.
So similar story, just reinforcement for you. My neighbor, who I think is a 3rd grader, the parents were over just visiting with them over the weekend, and she came in and said she was student of the month, and she brought in the letter that she got for being student of the month, and shirt as well and everything. So I mean, she's so excited. They were new to the school system towards the end of last year, so it's a new student that loves going to school, is thrilled to do it. So it was a great program. She's very excited. The parents were excited showing me the letter. So keep it up.
Yeah, all the students that got it. Prior to them, a letter was mailed home telling their parents exactly why they received it. So when the kids got home, they could not only have wear their shirt home, but could talk to their parents about, oh, we got this letter, let's talk about it. So.
Yep.
I would just, delight feels like a weird word to use, but it was great to hear the excitement and the focus on the integration of the work with the Lynch Leadership Academy. You mentioned one, encourage students to use Zern outside the classroom. It's great to hear high quality materials going home. I'm curious how, like, do families know about that? How are you making the connection to families about, like, here are the things you can be doing at home to help your student?
Well, it starts at different levels, so individual teachers are communicating, our counselors are meeting, you know, individual kids or groups of kids are getting it there. And then we are, like say every weekend, and we put out that newsletter, which has got photos and news and everything that's going on. So that's, you know, our way to get it out to people too. And we have a good way to track that it's gone to all the emails and homes of people, so we can track down anybody that didn't receive it. And like I say, it all goes translated in 6 different languages for our school too.
Jim, you all set? If Mrs. Lewis and Mr. Deppie, I have a question to see what kind of feedback you might have at this point. I think it's very important, and I did some campaigning and doing some more on making sure that our kids are fed equitably, because it's going to be free, not pointing any fingers at anybody. Have you seen that you think that there is a positive result of that I can take back? That would be my number one. I'd like an observation from each of you if you have a thought on that. And number two, as we're doing co-teaching and looping, is the inclination to expand those programs? Do you think that, we've only heard about these 2 programs, only myself individually. I don't want to tell you how long ago, but many years usually survives anything. I talk about my ancient history. And so what are your feelings on those 2 programs? And if you want to do it together and do a song and dance together, that works, but I'd like to, if you could hear from each of you.
If you don't mind, I'll take that, at least the inclusion in co-teaching. Looping is definitely a building-based decision based on whether or not we can do it, and we have available teachers who are willing to do it. But for the inclusion co-teaching, we are absolutely expanding the co-teaching model of inclusion. So for those out there who might be confused, they're not interchangeable. Inclusion is a belief system, believing that all students should be included into their grade level curriculum at appropriate entry points. Co-teaching is one way to deliver that. We are piloting it in every building. Some buildings have 2 teams. I think one building might have 3. But we will be doing this, expanding this throughout the district next year. Not only that, we'll also be expanding into other inclusive practices. So this doesn't have to be done just with special education students. We can do this with our ELL students and other students and in other ways. So we will be doing that as much as we can. But we will be providing training to staff members for that. We plan to have every single special education teacher trained in the co-teaching model. There's from our consultant, Lisa Deeker, out of Florida State. She's fantastic. Actually, all of the administrators were trained last week. Yeah. So some had gone through it before, but everybody, the baseline now is all administrators are trained, and we have teams trained in each school, and by the end of the year, every special educator, and hopefully every regular educator that will be participating in co-teaching will be trained by the end of the year.
As far as the food part for us,
thank you.
Yes, it's been great. We've seen increases to people use it. It's nice. Kids enjoy it. We also have the weekend snack pack program for people with food insecurity. And I would like to say the return of Tom Hool as the food services director, who is wonderful. He's already brought in different things and stuff into the menu, and to work that's happened and working logistically on how to get the kids through the lines quicker to have more food there too. And I mean, personally, I think with all the money that the state and the feds spend on all kinds of things, I think we should be feeding. This should continue forever. I don't think we should ever stop giving kids the lunch. So.
No, I think it's important to say this and to have it out front so that we have a way to put political pressure on people so that this does happen and someone doesn't decide that, oh, this is a foolish expenditure, it has nothing to do with education. But to me, you can't learn if you're hungry.
Right, exactly,
so,
absolutely. Beth, you want to
Beth,
the effect on the free lunch, and on our students, and, yeah.
So I think the effect on free lunch on our students, I think, has been a great thing for our kids, especially this day and age. I don't want to get political either, but there's a lot of struggle right now financially.
Well,
So
you're talking about different behavior things and stuff like that, and sometimes your behavior things are related to if the kids are ready to learn, and when they're frustrated that they can't learn because they didn't have breakfast or lunch or dinner last night. I think it's a huge thing that we need to go forward with. So I'm obviously not thinking anything about it. And just, I'm asking for a backup, I guess, from you so that as I go out.
Anything you need from us. We'll provide a letter, signatures, we'll survey families about their
I
thoughts.
think it's going forward nicely, but all you need to do is to have someone decide that too many people who have means are profiting from this, and I don't think that matters. So that's why I asked you that question.
Madam Chair, if I may, I just need to plug the food service, the cafeteria workers in this district.
Mm-hmm.
They're outstanding at every building, and the food looks really good. And I don't think people really think of that when they think of school lunches, right? But when you walk by and look at, when we walk by constantly to get onto our cars when we're going to another building, I'm like, wow, that lunch looks good. And I have to say, I don't remember ever saying that, looking at some other school lunches. So they do an outstanding job, and they make the kids want to eat the lunch because it's not just getting on the plate. It really does look. And I would welcome you all to take a look at it. It looks like an appealing
Maybe
lunch.
we should just eat there with the kids one day.
Sit with my kids, they'll love it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This was very good. Elementary schools are well received, well covered, and we really appreciate them.
And middle school, we're going good evening.
Good evening. This is our Shirley Regional Middle School. Mr. Ulrich.
Mr.
Carry
Ulrich
on.
and my assistant principal, Mr. Gatella. Thank you for having us. Just to start out, I'm going to kind of echo what the elementary talked about a little bit, which was one of the biggest things to celebrate last year, was just the return of opportunities to be a community again. We kind of slowly built that over time. There was some, adapting and figuring out ways to make it work with, we did a Halloween dance that was outdoors. Graduation was also outdoors last year. But by the end of the year, we really brought back almost all of our events and clubs, and that was really hard fought. It really took a lot of work to get those back up and running. So that was really exciting last year. So we gradually reintroduced events, organizations, clubs, and then at this point, starting this year, we feel like we're in a really good place that most of those things have already happened last year in some form, so we're just kind of like picking up where we left off. And the things that didn't happen, like school trips, we have a leg up on. We're pretty much ready to go. We were planning throughout last year and ways to get those running. So every grade level has trips that are getting planned right now and we're looking forward to rolling out. So we really feel like last year set us up for some major success this year. As far as performance academically, I was referred to Danielle. Charlie stole my thunder, but our accountability percentage improved significantly from last year, or from previous years. We had been in the 20s and 30s as far as ranking. We jumped up to the 55th percentile. We improved basically. Our proficiency or our growth scores in every area almost went up slightly. And that really is a testament to our staff. They dug deep last year. It was an extremely challenging year. And I actually think it's a good time to point out, I want to give a shout out to our paraprofessionals. Really, they worked really hard last year to fill gaps all over the place, and they were doing all sorts of roles throughout the year. Every staff member really dug deep last year, but I feel like I should give them a shout out in particular. As far as challenges going forward, the good news, it seems like, and I think Dr. Renda had said this, but it seems like from the data we held the line basically, that we are at a similar place that we were at in 2019. So the good news is that we really didn't see that big dip that we were dreading having gone through the COVID pandemic. That said, the challenge is that we're where we were in 2019, and so there's some things that we were working on then that we're going to return to now. Persistent performance gaps in subgroups. So some of our low-income students or students with disabilities, there's a gap. There's a significant gap between them and their gen ed peers, and so we have to try and close that gap.
And we also just in general have a proficiency plateau, kind of stagnant with where we're performing as far as proficiency of students on standards. And we need to find a way to kind of reposition ourselves so that we can grow coming out of the pandemic. So that's really our big challenge. And so it's basically just ensuring equity of instruction, and then also just really making sure that we have a school culture that includes everybody and creates a sense of belonging. So our first goal is to provide all students with equitable access to grade level content through inclusive instruction. It's again something that came up in the elementaries as well, so it's something you're seeing across the district. We want to have that gap for the IEP 504 and low-income students closed. We want to shrink that gap as much as possible. And we also noticed teachers worked really hard this year. Actually, I will say, like, coming back from a really tough year, I was amazed by our staff. Really were ready to do the work. We had some really significant conversations about data and really dug deep to try and figure out what was happening. And we noticed some discrepancies. Some odds. There were students that what we were doing really worked for those kids, and then there are other kids in the class that it didn't work for at all. And we realized that we've got to find a way to connect with both of those kids. Everybody needs to be moving forward for us to call it a success. So actions, we have universal design learning. That's something that we've been working on for a couple of years now as far as professional development. But we need to really make sure that's being implemented in the classroom. And really what that's about is presenting information in multiple ways so everybody can access it, giving multiple opportunities to kind of process it, however you process it, and then giving different ways to demonstrate that understanding. And that way, for your students that are struggling, they have a few different ways they can access things. And for students that are accelerating, they have new, interesting ways that they can apply what they've learned, what skills they have. So it really benefits all students instructing that way. Progress monitoring, we've been piloting iReady. We piloted iReady in last year. I think we're out of the pilot at this point. We're continuing with the iReady reading and math. And that is a standardized assessment. We're giving it 3 points in the year that really mirrors closely how students perform on MCAS. So our staff are getting better and better at reading the results of that and then using the resources associated with it to group students and provide them with the supports they need. Which actually rolls into the next thing, which is targeted instruction. This was a school-wide goal last year. It's something that we're continuing to try to apply this year. But targeted small group instruction, effectively, teachers look at the data ahead of time before they teach a lesson, try to identify the kids that are going to struggle or are going to have some skills gaps that are going to make it difficult for them to get into the lesson. And so they pull them aside and provide them like a mini lesson while the other students start rolling with what they're doing for the day. So we're trying to continue to use that strategy. And then finally, we're using co-teaching, which is a partnership between a special ed teacher and a gen ed teacher to try and use the resources on both ends to benefit students. Sometimes having a special education teacher assist gen ed students is really beneficial to them, and vice versa. And so they can collaborate with one another in the classroom to really meet all students' needs. The outcome, hopefully, being that we reduce those gaps. And that we have rigorous instruction for all students at grade level. Our second goal is to develop social-emotional supports that proactively meet student needs and also are ready to respond to acute concerns. Mental health is a huge component coming out of the COVID pandemic. So we really want to be able to respond to a mental health crisis for a student, but then also we know that just in general, students came out of the pandemic with less social skills and self-management than they had before. Unfortunately, they were isolated for a while there, and so we're seeing that show up in less maturity, as they're coming into the middle school. So actions, we have tier 1 social emotional support. Teachers are trying to embed strategies within the classroom that will help students with that self-management and those social skills. Simple things, just like greeting them when they come in the door to get a read on where they are emotionally coming into the classroom. Also, responsive strategies like processing something. If students seem like they're off, taking a moment to have them do an activity where they can kind of express how they're feeling, and that way they can refocus on what we're doing academically for the day. Just different strategies you can use while you're in the classroom to respond quickly and cover a large group of students. We're also using universal screeners, so our counseling department is working on identifying ways we can survey students and try and get individual reads on them and identify students that may have a need. Students, I will say, one of the silver linings of the pandemic, they seem like they are very quick to recognize when they're having an issue and what resources are available. And so we're trying to keep them doing that, keep them connected to our counselors, and continue to identify those students that are struggling. We are continuing to build our advisory program, so we do that bi-monthly, so twice a month we have an advisory, which is effectively smaller groups, it's a smaller class, are meeting with the same group of students, the same teacher, and they're discussing just different topics that come up for a middle school student, things like having positive friendships, issues on social media, bullying, just the different issues that you're going to encounter, and explicitly giving them instruction on how to manage those things. And then BRIGHT program is the final thing there. We started this last year. So the BRIGHT program is effectively a program that meets the needs of students that are having mental health issues, or also just health issues in general that are keeping them out of school. Last year it was a dedicated space that we had created for them. We had a paraprofessional that was associated with it so that they could access it if they were struggling in class. It's kind of a safe place for them to go. This year we added another component, which is we have an additional adjustment counselor. So we have 2 adjustment counselors now and a school counselor. Christina Tahan is the new adjustment counselor, and Jessica Bryan is our other adjustment counselor. And they actually are now specifically associated with programs. So Christina is actually working with the BRIGHT program, and so any student that goes to that program is going to stick with her, and she's going to follow them through the year once they have that challenge. So if they have to go, some students may be hospitalized for a period, they come back, they're set up with a safe space, and then they also have a counselor that's going to stick with them. So if they do fall back a bit and need those supports again, they're there right away to help them out. So the hopeful outcome of this would be we have a reduction in numbers of students that need services, need to see counselors. But we know that that's probably going to continue to have a little bit of an uptick coming out of COVID. The other thing is, we want to be able to respond quickly to students and minimize any kind of learning loss. We want them to get back, and even general education, if they're having a tough day, giving them the skills they need to refocus and continue to make progress. And then students that have, more acute needs, getting them back into the classroom, learning as soon as possible, and in a sustainable way that we actually manage whatever the crisis was they were having before they go in there. And our final goal is to foster a school culture that provides all the community members with a sense of belonging. Again, one of the highlights of last year was getting back together as a community, but it's not as simple as everybody being back in a room and for our opening assembly. There's more to it than that, and we have to rebuild a lot of the relationships that we don't have because of the pandemic. So students learn best when all members feel they're valued and feel like they can be themselves in the school. We talked a lot at the start of the year about what it means to belong versus just fit in. We want students to feel like their identity is honored and they have a place in the school. We also recognize that there's feedback coming out of, there's a variety of surveys. We had the equity audit. We also had a couple other surveys that came out at the end of last year. And we noticed that there were some differences in different students. Some students felt like they belonged and felt like they had a strong voice in the school, but we recognize not all students felt that way. And so we're really trying to find ways to build them up and make them feel like they have a sense of ownership and they have a place in the school, that they're valued. So ways that we are doing that, again, we're using Tier 1 social emotional support, so building those relationships between teachers and students. Teachers also taking time within their lesson to make connections between peers is a priority. We've added a new mentor program this year. There are a group of 8th graders that are receiving training over the course of the year. Once a month they get a training. There's a leadership opportunity for them. And then that same month, a week later, they're going in and they're working with 6th graders. So there's about a group of, 4 or 5 per room? 5, yeah. So we've got 5 8th grade students going into those advisory programs and doing activities with them, and again, touching on topics that they've encountered. And for a 6th grade student to have an 8th grade student talking to them about it, it has, just some more street cred as far as an 8th grader saying it versus, your teacher saying it. And we're also hoping that will have a benefit in the hallways as well, to know, you've got an 8th grade student that and is a safe person to chat with. It builds a different community as a whole. We revised enrichments. This is probably one of the bigger changes we made to our schedule this year. So we expanded the number of enrichments we have this year. We were able to add a bunch of enrichments and actually also reduce our class sizes by shifting around our schedules. So we have increased availability and increased choices. So we gave students a choice of their enrichments. And we really try to focus on things that they'd be interested in or high engagement that they'd be passionate about. We want to build up their success in school, and have them apply those skills and that knowledge that they're getting in their core classes in different ways. And so that's what we're doing in our enrichment classes. There's a whole bunch of different enrichment classes, everything from history of photography, history of Star Wars, we have a journalism class, so a lot of passion projects that are coming in. Yeah,
What was the last one?
A lot of problems.
Yeah.
Podcasting. So one of our teachers is doing intro to podcasting, and our students are making podcast episodes and a series. It's awesome. It's so cool.
Yeah, no, and it's great. Yeah, they're applying skills that they're learning in their core classes into the enrichments, and then vice versa as well. Things like podcasting and journalism, obviously, have great value in the core classes as well. So it's been really exciting to see that roll out. And then the final action there is the Restorative Practice Center. So this is kind of similar program to the BRIGHT program in that it's a dedicated space. There's a paraprofessional that's associated with the program that stays in there. And then our other adjustment counselor, Jessica Bryan, is associated with the program. But essentially, and this is really the one that's spearheading this and running everything, but if there is a conflict or an issue in the school, it's a place for students to go to work through that issue. So if we're having a behavior issue, it's not like they just go down to the office and they get a consequence and we move on. They go down to a restorative practice center and they have a conversation about what damage they did to the community. What does it mean when you insult somebody or call somebody a name? And they have a conversation. And we're finding that we have faster results from that because students have a chance to really process it. Thank you. Yeah, sorry, but we're seeing huge results. Students serve the detention, they move on, and they do the same thing over again. Versus if they have to sit down and have a conversation with the teacher or the student that was harmed by whatever they did, it makes a massive difference. And so that program is we're already seeing some great successes there. So outcomes, again, improved sense of belonging. We want some consistency of experience for our students. We want students to all feel like they belong. So we want them to feel like they're all treated fairly and they all have a voice. And then finally, increased student engagement and a reduction in disruptive behaviors. Last year was a difficult year, and we really thought about it a lot and thought about what we needed for our teachers to be successful in the classroom. And that is it for us.
Thank you. Very good.
Awesome presentation. Really happy with the goals again. Seems to be a recurring theme amongst the staff. As far as goal 1, I will say there's definite benefit that's reached when they get into high school, because I know that you guys did start that last year, and Rihanna in particular was kind of concerned when she was going to go into humanities, and when she stepped in there, she didn't have any issues, and she actually remembered some of the things from the mini classes and the mini sessions. And even reading, so I definitely know firsthand that that's been a huge help when she's stepping into high school, and kind of put a little bit of a spring in her step when she started, which is really nice. So I think that goal and moving forward and pushing on that is going to be great, and I'm excited to see more students that will be affected by that.
I wrote down a few things. First off, I appreciate it. I love the detail, and especially just around how much focus you have on some of the behavioral and social and the trainings that you're giving everybody to identify and then specifically address. So I think it's hugely important. I love the 8th grade mentor program. I mean, you're absolutely right to have kids doing it and then mentoring 6th grade. The 8th graders will greatly benefit from being in that role, and the 6th graders will actually listen. So it's fantastic. And the one thing, so enrichment, fantastic. My son comes home. Ryan loves history of Star Wars. It's making some of the learning really fun. Isabel is very mad you didn't do it while she was there. So I think the enrichment programs truly are great. I mean, it's a huge benefit. And lastly, my kids told me I had one job when I got on the school committee, and that's to get the DC trip back. So it was good to hear that some of those trips are coming back. So
he's now volunteering to organize it and lead it, and we all heard him say it.
Yeah, but no, great presentation.
Anybody else?
Sure. I similarly appreciated goal 1. I mean, the reality is that accessible instruction is good for all kids, not just those who it's sort of primarily designed for, and so that's great to see. It's good to hear about the use of iReady. I guess and so I skipped ahead, and I also looked at the high school plan ahead of time, and there was a goal there around progress monitoring and the feedback to students. And so I guess the question I have, like in the middle school, how are you thinking about feedback to students with the different progress monitoring that you are doing?
I was going to talk, I know for the math teachers, because we like split for
Yeah,
teacher-wise. So
yeah.
for math, I know our teachers, they do pre-conferencing. So before they do iReady, like the week leading up to it, they'll talk like where do you think you are? And then they are aligned where they have a post-reflection sheet where they get their score, and this is where, and each teacher conferences with the kids one-on-one during the class time. And they're using this data reflection sheet, and they keep it through all that we do 3 times throughout the year. So I got the privilege of seeing it in one of the classes in May or in June when we did our last one, and they were showing me like, this is where I was in September, and now look here. So they get to see, and I know across the board this year they're using the same data sheet in all the classes.
ELA is actually very similar. ELA, they're doing they call them data chats, but they have a similar conversation with students about how their performance was and like what areas they need to work on. And that actually it's echoed when they go to do their writing as well. They do workshops on their writing, and they're meeting with the kids individually. So while students are working individually, they'll have those individual conferences on like what does your data mean, or what are the areas of your writing you can work on. So kids are getting really tailored feedback.
That's tremendous. Great.
With respect to the break program, you mentioned the adjustment process. Is there background and expertise is it psychology, sociology, SPED? What's the background of people who are in that function?
They're licensed clinical social workers. So that's they're used to delving deep with students individually and having they're trained effectively to have therapy sessions with students. They don't necessarily practice that all the time. We don't delve too deep with individual students during the school day, but they have the background that they can delve into some of the deeper issues that students are encountering, and we're seeing pop up as mental health issues.
Right. And how was the participation benefit? Some of the, I don't know, if all the clubs have restarted, like my kids were in like chess club, history club, are they rebooted?
Yeah, effectively. I think we've got every club. Every club is back up and running. They're all running at this point.
This week in the announcements, it's all coming out with like permission slips saying after when it is. So.
Mr. Deppie has a question.
No, a comment. Thank you. I just have to tell Brian and Danielle, I've already heard how wonderful that 8th grade mentoring program is. During our open house, I had several of your 8th graders who were at my open house because they had younger siblings at the school. So excited to tell me about the program and that they picked to be mentors. They were so psyched about it. So.
That's awesome.
That is. Like the 8th graders, their excitement about being mentors was huge. They are pumped to do it. I think it's going to create a really positive culture just in the school as a whole to have 8th graders that are excited to hang out with 6th graders and talk to them about what they went through the 3 years they were in middle school.
I highly regret sending an email to all the mentors because every Monday, are we mentoring today? Are we mentoring today? No, not today, guys.
It sounds like, I don't know how you expanded, but it sounds like you may need to include some more kids in it somehow.
We do it actually. There's a huge enrollment. We have a lot of mentors.
Yeah.
If anything, we probably have too many mentors. But we are thinking about ways that we can continue to expand it in ways that we can connect it actually to the elementaries and help with their transition from elementary to middle school. So that is like a long-term plan. We're just building up within the school first.
And it's awesome for the 7th graders to see it, so they know now that these 8th graders, like, I can be that next year, or I can do that next year. So it's really awesome to see.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And
last but not least,
the upper school is here.
So thank you for having us here tonight. I think there are many reasons to celebrate last year. As Dr. Renda mentioned, it was a very difficult year. Certainly COVID-related brought on a number of challenges to the high school. So I'm going to start with challenges. Most notably, we saw more discipline referrals in one year than we had in the previous three combined. And I think we'd already exceeded that by halfway through the year. We were seeing behaviors that frankly were more middle school, which made sense in that students had in part missed several years of school. So last year was a learning year for us and led to us reevaluating our practice in several ways. However, there were also reasons to celebrate. So one of the ones you heard about tonight from Dr. Renda and Mr. Kaleri was higher than expected levels in MCAS. Our ELA MCAS were much higher than even we had predicted, and where the SGP for the state was hovering right around 50 to 51, 52%. Our SGP was at 66%, so greatly exceeding what we were seeing kind of across the state. A bit equally important, we expanded on our practice of responding to disciplinary actions by looking at ways in which we could instill restorative practices, both in our staff and in our students. And this changed culture for us as a school. And we're going to talk a little bit more as we go through the evening about how we're expanding that practice. But it's changing us, and it's changing the way we as a high school function. Are we ready for goal one?
We are trying.
Thank you. It's purple.
It's purple.
So I'll move on as we're waiting. Our first goal is to create and implement a student code of character, conduct, and support to replace our current RHS student handbook. And this comes really as a result of a few things. One, in looking at the equity audit, we wanted to make sure that our practices were equitable to all students, they were inclusive, and they really became more restorative, so that the handbook reflected what was happening at the high school. This work started largely last year as a result of both the equity audit and of the creation of a discipline committee at the high school. So we had started to look at several codes of conduct, character, and support that have been created. There's most notably a very famous one out of the Syracuse district, Syracuse, New York district. Framingham Public Schools have also created a truly excellent one. And you'll start to see elements of this code of conduct, character, and support already in place in this year's handbook. So when you look at the discipline section, it's now been replaced by a discipline matrix. You'll also notice that more of our restorative practices and ideas are now being infused throughout that book itself. The hope is really that we're going to continue to work with our key stakeholders, those being students, parents, and staff members, to collaboratively create this handbook together. So that's going to be happening throughout the year as we work through several working drafts to have this finalized for your approval next year. Dr. Meyer, would you like to speak a little bit about some of the other wonderful things that we included over the summer?
Sure. So over the summer, we also had started implementing the next student-to-student mentoring program. So our teachers had identified at the end of last year students that they thought would kind of encompass all of our students' body, and not just necessarily NHS students or student council students. We kind of wanted students from every avenue of life, so to speak. And so they had identified about 22 students, 20 of whom ended up completing applications and being accepted. We now have 18 students who are being trained on a monthly basis. One Monday a month they have about a 45-minute training, and then they actually take that lesson and they go into our advisories on the following A day, and they implement those lessons with the 9th grade advisories. So the juniors and seniors, the 18 students that we have on board, are really excited, and they had a wonderful first session just this past month.
So they're looking forward to going in again on the 17th is their next time that they'll be going in for another training and then implementing that next lesson. The other thing that we had started working on last year was talking about, you have the BRIGHT program, we have an ESS program up at the high school. And that is also for our students who have the most social emotional challenges. And it really creates a wonderful safe space for them. We have a clinician who is in our building all 5 days a week for full days. And she has a case counseling load of, I think, 7 students now. 8. We just got another one today. Yep. So she is working individually with the students. Then she's doing wraparound services with the families to include family work, and then she does group work that she's going to start implementing with this group of students that she's working with. And she also does consultations with all the teachers on a weekly basis to ensure that the students are working on their strategies in the classroom so that they're more emotionally stable in the classroom, so to speak, and more engaged and can learn better.
Thank you. So I'll move on to our second goal. And our second goal really involves creating a culture of progress monitoring at high school and using data to assess student progress and making adjustments to practice as we're going along. Some of the things we've seen over the past couple of years are students increasing their usage of specifically IXL work in math and science, and looking at portfolio work within English. We're asking both our students and teachers to reflect on this practice, use it more regularly, and create success plans when we aren't seeing students meet the desired learning results. So this is something we have done a bit over the past few years, but now we're formalizing the practice and really looking to include everyone within the process. This will be done throughout the year, including members of our building leadership team, as well as students and families. Our third goal is to implement and expand the opportunities for co-teaching in Berkshire Regional High School. So last year, we had worked with 3 co-teaching pairs, and we saw beyond expected results from them. And so this was largely happening within students who we were looking to move back into the inclusion setting, who had been not in an inclusion setting. And we were thrilled with the amount of students that now feel comfortable returning to the inclusion setting at the high school. This has increased to 2 additional pairs of co-teachers for this year. And the co-teaching pairs that have been working have largely focused on the work of Lisa Deeker, as Dr. Renda mentioned earlier. And we'll now be bringing that to our special education department so that those pairings increase rapidly throughout the next few years. This, we believe, will really make inclusion possible for all students within the high school. And our last goal of the evening is to create, implement, and report to students and families the progress on students' transferable skills that we had created last year as part of our Vision for Graduate. So over the past few years, we've talked about how NEASC has influenced many of our school improvement plan goals. This is a continuation of one. Last year, we had created our Vision of the Graduate, which we were proud to display at graduation. This year, we're looking at taking those transferable skills that we've identified and that families have identified and students have identified, and creating rubrics around them that we can measure how students are succeeding within those transferable skills and then reporting them out. We are hoping to, within future years, report these out to families 8 times a year. So at progress reports and at end of term reports, so that families aren't just receiving academically how their students are doing, but they're also getting an update on those other skills, those really important work-related skills that we believe are going to make success possible for all our students in the future. So I apologize. No visuals tonight, but that is really an overview of what we're looking to do this year.
So, good presentation. Being able to talk and flow through that, I'm really excited about the final goal. So having those transferable skills, I know a lot of times when I have, you know, conversations at home, it's either real world scenarios, community scenarios, and then work ethic. You know, applying whatever's going on in the classroom or student council or whatever is going on, so that Rihanna, I only got one kid. Rihanna is, she's able to translate it and be able to have kind of that forward vision. So I like the idea of having that rubric, because then it, I think, will aid parents at home in assisting your children to see how that happens. So I'm very excited by that goal.
Thank you.
I think I would just echo that. I have a senior, so my biggest concern is almost the loss of 2 years of preparing for when he leaves this building, right? And all of our students, no matter what they're going on to, whether it be college, professional life, or anything. So I think that transitions and helping them get back to how to be successful, how to get organized, how to write, is, I think, what we constantly talk about.
I think similar to the other presentations, I've appreciated how pithy they are. And I don't know if this is a loaded question or not. I'm curious, you're leading a high school, all of the schools are feeding up into and ultimately culminating in high school graduation. It has been nice to see the through line between the elementary to middle school to high school plans. Are there things that you wish we were prioritizing as a district when you think about, you know, having students enter at 9th grade and being ready to leave in high school? What are the things that we could or should be considering as we look ahead to future years?
Sure. This is going to sound kissing up, but it's true. I actually think Dr. Renda and Mr. Cleary created a really concentrated set of goals for us as a district that are going to elevate us through next levels. So when we look at the Tier 1 instruction being the most important point for us to focus our efforts, it is clearly a point where we can get stronger, and that's at the high school level as well. It's going to yield great results for us. That's going to come out of us being an inclusive school, following the equity report that has been created for the district. I think we really need to dig into that and have some tough conversations within ourselves about the practices that we're employing. That's going to lead to greater sense of accomplishments. That can happen for all students with the co-teaching initiative that's been put into play. Mr. Cleary has talked a lot over the past few years about an emphasis on UDL. And UDL is going to break down barriers for students to be able to, for them to show the true learning that they have achieved in each of these areas without necessarily the constraints of a specific assignment. So thanks to the leadership that we're given, I think we're really given a pathway to succeed. And I think what you're seeing from each of the 4 schools here is that through line. And it's all been connected from the district improvement plan, shining a light for us and showing us how we can succeed.
I would say the thing that separates, I guess, from a number of other things, it's hard in our world, right? Is that you get measured by, you know, what's your list of college acceptances, you know, all that sort of stuff here. We have gone out of our way, you guys have gone out of your way to say, even in the phrasing, to achieve a successful post-graduation. That can mean military, that can mean any number of things. And in a lot of cases, that entire segment gets no play. For years and years, and prior to the district being formed, that was really the case. You know, and then we went from that in the early years, and I'll say this overall on all the presentations tonight, in the early years, because you and Michelle were Joyce was here from the beginning, you know, the initial presentations were like, we're gonna redouble our efforts and all that sort of stuff. And it's like, well, you're gonna get nowhere twice as fast. No one's saying you're not working hard. You know, you had the targets, you had to figure out exactly what you want to achieve. You know, and that kind of thing has gone away. Now when I take a look at the general theme from all 4 of the school improvement plans, what I see is like, you know, we already have a vision. You know, there's some areas we gotta improve. We have to trend the sale, and we gotta get some play out of the rudder, and it's like, and there isn't some like gigantic new initiative that would say, all right, if you're gonna do this big initiative, you're gonna have to drop like 30% of the other stuff that you're already doing. I didn't see that in any of the stuff here. I saw things that were changes in directions that we were already headed, and it was very reassuring to see that approach.
Thank you. You mentioned something that I think is really important, which is the idea of success. Success to each student is going to look different, based on their future goals, their future plans, their versions of what makes them happy. And I think for us, it's really taking into account what each student's version of success can be and trying to help them to achieve that. And so for many students, that's absolutely focused in the classroom. But I think for a number of our students, that's focused on the athletic fields, that's focused on stage, that's focused in art magazine. And so I think one of the things you're seeing now is kind of that more individualized, a la carte dealings with students, where we can really focus in on their particular needs and helping them to achieve what's possible for them.
Please.
So first of all, I want to let you all know from the administration to the different building leaders, there is a stark thing that I noticed when I immediately walked in the room, and that's the unity and cohesiveness amongst this group. It is palpable without you all even saying a word, and I'm not saying that you weren't cohesive, don't get me wrong, but it is literally palpable the level of support and cohesion I'm seeing amongst all of you, and the consistent, and Jim touched on it, the consistent unity and thought that's going into it, and level of support amongst each other regardless of what your role is. It's really exciting to see, and I mean, we're just getting new numbers and things like that, but it's pretty awesome to watch right now and just see that you all are staying for each other's presentations. You know, you're talking, you're encouraging each other, you're you know, creating a sense of unity, or representing that which you're trying to get to the students. So if you have it at this level, it's very encouraging and very likely that it is going to pass down to the students. But I noticed it from the minute I walked in the door, you know, as we were just setting up. So I just want to highlight that, because I know people can't see it at home, but I absolutely have been seeing it, and I saw it tonight, and I just want to highlight how awesome it is to see it and how great you all look standing together authentically, transparently, and in unity.
There you go. There you go. Anybody else? And I agree with Erica. She said it very well. And I went back there, and the chit chat between means that you have been used to working together, and all for one for all. Whatever we want to do, teamwork. Let's do this. It was pretty evident. So keep up that good work. I just had one question, and I know you're only working on this now, but can you just give me an example of a couple of 2 or 3 things that you're thinking of as transferable skills? And then I'll put mine in, being a business owner who works with 16, 17, and 18-year-olds. I can talk about transferable skills pretty fast. And I know you're not there yet. If you give me I just like a small example of what you're defining, and she's shaking her head yes. So,
Sure. Want to each give our favorite one? So my favorite
yeah,
one.
Your favorite one. There you go.
Communication. For me, did I take yours?
Yes.
Yeah. Communication, I think, is something that transcends education. We need to be able to effectively talk to each other, effectively present our ideas to each other, and ultimately know where each other are coming from. So for our students, this is something that yes, we need to be measuring. I think we've all sensed that there's been a loss of some of our communication skills over the past few years. As students have moved to being in a more digital world.
Well, we haven't had a need for it. We haven't had a need for it.
And the face-to-face world can be scary. And so I think what we're looking at is ways in which we can help students to present, to effectively talk to each other, to work through problem sets together, so that by the time they leave all of our schools, they're ready to enter either college or the world of work or the military, with a sense of self and a sense of how to communicate who they are to the world.
Communication was part of my favorite, just because I think that we've worked on that as a staff, and I think that then flows downhill, so to speak. So I think kids have observed all of us doing that, and so I think that is helpful. Like, I feel like we've been role models for that. So that's kind of why that was one of my favorites. But time management was something that we all had talked about, and the kids had identified it as that, you know, that's really hard for them to do. And
Just for them?
So, and I have two in college now who they thought they were very organized in high school, and they got to college with sports, and they're like, oh my God, this is totally different. And so luckily they had a pretty good base of time management that they're now trying to figure out how to apply in a different way. You know, it's much, it's different for them in college than it was in high school. But, so those were my two, just because of my personal experiences. My two of my favorites.
I think we probably could go on for about 14 hours with different things.
Yeah.
Would love to hear the result of that, by the way, as it progresses through the year and how it develops. So.
Well, you will see it. So we'll be happy to come back and to share with you the rubrics as we create them, and then the ways in which we can find a way to meld that into reporting out to families, so that both students and their families get a very real sense of where students are starting and where they're completing by the end of the semester. Because I agree, I think they are skills that can not only be worked on at school, but they can be worked on at home. And if we're all in communication and we're working together as a team, this is something that can all be done to support student learning.
And apologies to the high school administration. Their presentation was on the computer and ready to go. Unfortunately, we need to restart that projector in order to get it. And
we are having technical difficulties, that's all you need to say. Right? So thank you very, very much. I know taking time at the end of a hard day and another hard day coming up, but we really appreciate this, and I think it's so important. We're talking about communicating with families. This is the first thing you need to do. And we did it tonight, I hope. So I had someone who said they listen all the time, so we'll see.
Could I make one final plug before we enter the night?
Sure.
On October 14th, we are going to be having a very exciting event at the high school, which is a dedication of the new field and also homecoming. The game will be free to anyone who wishes to come, as will the dedication ceremony. These are two not to be missed events. The field, for anyone who's visited, is gorgeous. This is state of the art. It has our students so excited to be in school here. To quote a few students that I've heard, we've gone from having the worst field in central Massachusetts to having the best. It is an incredible home field advantage. Our football team is playing incredibly well this year. So please come out, support us, cheer us on as the Panther Pride reigns through the night.
I think you need to embellish that with when it starts, what time, et cetera, et cetera.
Excellent.
Et cetera.
5 p.m. will be the ceremony. 7 p.m. will be the game. And we're going to win. So that's the most important part.
let's plug volleyball too.
Volleyball will also be happening that night, and that's their annual Dig Pink event. So it's done to celebrate breast cancer awareness. It's a tremendous event, and our volleyball team does an absolutely incredible job both raising awareness for breast cancer awareness, as well as celebrating many of the successes that people are seeing as they go through the process.
And the time of those games?
3:30.
4 to 7.
3:30.
4:15. 5.
And 4:15.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, if people don't know when to come, people don't know when to come, you know.
Yes. Please come out. There are wonderful things happening at the high school.
Yeah. And for the Dig Pink game, one of our own students had actually designed a T-shirt, and they were selling that to make some proceeds
For breast cancer. So thank you all very much. I would entertain a motion to, if you want to do it individually or if you want to do it as a set, to approve the school improvement plans from LAW, from Page Hilltop, from Air Shirley Middle School, and Air Shirley High School. I will take the feeling of the committee and how you want to do that.
I would make a motion that we accept the school improvement plans for Laura A. White, Page Hilltop, the Air Shirley Regional Middle School, and the Air Shirley Regional High School as presented.
Seconded.
And moved and seconded. Is there any more questions or discussion? Seeing none, I would ask for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Not voting? That is unanimous, and I would follow that up with a round of applause. Thank you very much. And anytime you want to come and brag, tell us something good or bad. We're here to listen to you. So, very good.
Thank you. Good night.
There's a lot to like here, and I've lost my agenda, so I'm in trouble.
I apologize about the high school
Oh, okay.
presentation not being.
I've lost it. I know it's buried someplace. Thank you.
You had a hard copy of that high school presentation, right? Did you have a hard copy of that? You didn't? We'll
Yeah,
make sure,
no, we did.
we'll get that out to you.
We had,
It's in the folder.
we had his packet.
Okay.
Yeah, they had a packet. So that takes care of our main new business. Flipping over to the last of new business, which is nomination of delegate for the Mass November Conference, and a vote for that. Anyone can attend the delegate thing. We only have one vote per school district, and so I encourage anybody to come down for a day, for an hour, for a keynote speaker on any of the mornings, because the keynote speakers are usually worth the hour and a half. It's actually exactly a 2-hour drive to get to Hyannis from my house, to the minute. So anytime you can do it. I wish they would move it back to where we had it in Worcester, and then you could just drop in anytime and not have to commit to more time. I am planning on going, so we need a nomination for a delegate to vote.
I nominate you, Joyce.
Well, thank you, Erica. That's nominated and seconded. Any discussion or questions? We will be going over everybody got a copy of the things we're voting on this year. There's only 5.
Yes.
And they're all pretty reasonable. I am going to check with, there's one in there that has to do something with the towns, and so I thought I would go and see the town managers and see what their opinion was, which I'm sure is going to be positive, but it never hurts to ask them and tell them what we're doing. So any other discussions or questions on the nomination of the delegate for the Mask November Conference?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I think anybody's foolish enough to vote for themselves, so I'll say aye, because if you don't vote for yourself, then you're a foolish person, if you don't believe in yourself. Anyway, that is unanimous, and we are out of new business and on to Dr. Renda's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's not really too much on the superintendent's report this week. We will have a sports update during the next meeting, and to your delight, I'm sure Mr. Kendall will be delivering that in person, which I know he does a much better job at that than I do. But we have begun to work with the Lynch Leadership Academy on our strategic planning. We have had some preliminary meetings with Jen Colasaco, the executive director. Part of that isn't only the strategic planning, but also 6 hours of coaching per school administration team, and 8 hours of coaching for central office to split up however it seems fit. Part of this, one of these things that, just an example of how this coaching is being used, is one of the findings was to really think about how we're doing holiday celebrations and how we can make many of our students feel like they are not part of that. Mr. Deppie has volunteered to work with a Lynch coach to not stop having these celebrations, but to kind of start to transform them into being more inclusive events so that we can get the parent participation, we get the positive community involvement, we get the sense of belonging, but have everybody feel included in that. To Mr. Deppie's credit, he was not only willing to do this, but excited. That is just one example of how that coaching will be used. I shared this earlier, but all of our administrators have participated in the co-teaching PD with our consultant, Lisa Deeker. Really well received. I have yet to meet someone who has sat through this training and has not had positive comments and feelings about that. We can, if anyone is interested in sitting through this, it's a little over an hour, it's about 75 minutes. We will be offering this several times. If you're interested in sitting in it and just seeing what that co-teaching is about, we will extend an invitation to you. Just if you could send an email to Michelle, we will then get you, it is all virtual too, we will send you the links of when it is happening so that you can hop on. We would love to.
Could that just be sent to all of us, and then everybody who has the opportunity can just do it? Or do you want to know who's there, or what's the story?
Well, it's always nice to know who's coming,
Okay.
and to prepare the PD provider, but we can certainly do that, yeah. So really, the only other thing to share is that all of the open houses happened in person for the first time in quite a while. It happened at the high school on September 29th from 6 to 8. The feedback that we got, that it was a great event, and that families are really happy to be there. It was September 15th at the middle school. It was the first open house in person in over 2 years. Everybody seemed really, really happy to be there. They had some community partners in the main hall area. ASF was there, CPAC, the PTO, and the robotics team. Families got information from these organizations and actually got to sign up for clubs. Teachers and parents were reflecting on the night and spoke how positive they felt about the start of the school year. And I have to say, really, the overall start of this year, I know I had said this in a meeting or two ago, it is the best opening that I've had as an administrator. So that's about 16 years, and I will echo that it has stayed that way. Sometimes you say that and you wait for it to change, but it hasn't, and this is a great feeling. And I've heard that from some teachers too. Laura White had approximately 80% of their families attend open house. This is why you cannot find a parking spot choice. They attempted to provide a family picnic, but it was raining that night. Still,
in the rain,
there were
People
families.
still picnicked. It was.
The toughness of the rain.
Yeah, it was tremendous. Yeah.
Principal Lewis starts the presentation in the gymnasium to communicate expectations to families and the importance of school attendance, homework, counseling information, the importance of getting involved in your child's education before parents and students visited classrooms. It was a great night. A great night was had by all. And Mr. Deppie, the Page Hilltop Open House, returned to the live event. It was a great night. On the lawns were full of Page Hilltop families as they began with their traditional welcome back picnic. Seems like there's some symmetry between our elementary schools. The halls of the school were filled with exciting atmospheres. Hundreds of enthusiastic students and their families on an engaging tour of their school. In the cultural arts room were numerous information tables by many of the community groups, such as AirPD, ASF, CPAC, Parks and Rec, and scouting groups. Families also enjoyed the PTO bake sale, raffle prizes, and the Name Our Panther mascot contest. It was a wonderful event for the start of the school year. So we're thrilled that this is an in-person event. Open house is really difficult to do virtually. And we've been talking a lot about getting back to building relationships. And it's hard to do that across the computer screen. And it's hard to do that by filling out forms.
You can't
that
get the smell of the school by not being in the school. I'm sorry, it doesn't happen on Zoom.
I agree. So we want to have a mix, right? We learned some things from the pandemic, and things like open house and other performances are great to have in person, right? But things like parent-teacher conferences are really great to have virtually, because what we find is You get 80% participation in an open house when it's live. You get 80% participation in parent conferences when it's virtual. So we will be having virtual conferences. We will provide in-person conferences when a parent requests it. But our default will be virtual because the attendance during the pandemic was much higher than it typically is in person and before. And that is all for the superintendent's report.
Thank you.
Can I just say two things? So
Sure,
one, I
please do.
think it's astounding the culture that was built during the open house, and it's not just because it was we're back to in person. I think the intentionality that the building leaders put into those events was incredible. My wife works in Concord Carlisle, and her takeaway was I am taking everything from this event and bringing it to our open house next year. It was a tremendous event, and even comparing to the pre-pandemic, there were just different activities that were really intentional and I think really helped. Again, it wasn't just a novelty of being back in person, so it was great. And then I think, it was Sunday family dinner, and we were talking about hey, remember when we got to go to the high school? Why didn't we do that? So thinking about the in-person things, what are the opportunities to get kids into different school buildings in the district, whether it's the arts nights, the plays. So I think those are going to be exciting opportunities this year. So as much as we can continue to build those community build or emphasize those community building events, I think will be really exciting.
I think that's a great point. We're getting that community school by school.
Yeah.
It's got to be cross school and cross district, and hopefully that's next step.
So
We'll start with homecoming.
talking about the middle school mentoring program, so we should have the mentors being trained before they get to 8th grade so that they can be active on the first day. But then some of those, they should be going down to the elementary schools to the 5th grade and
That's the plan.
and bringing them up.
They are absolutely thinking about doing that to help with their transition into middle school.
Very scary stuff, and it makes it easier.
Yeah. We really like to see high school students doing that to 8th grade for a few reasons, right? For that transition, but to also get all of our 8th graders, every single one of them, to know that our high school is their best choice, right? Or could be their best choice. So.
Well, the other thing is that, they talk about the skills to take with them, and one of the skills to take with them is to go down and talk to someone else and teach them something. And if that's the high school kids, you can incorporate a lot of kids into doing that, not just 8. We have a lot of kids. Big plans.
Yeah, we agree.
Scary. Thank you. Is there anything else from the administration that they would like to highlight? We tabled item number D from the Panther statute to this portion of the meeting. And so is there something that someone did not feel comfortable with and they would like to expound on that item? Do we need more information or would like to hear more information about the item so that we can feel better about it?
Yes, I'll just speak my part. I know I cannot vote in favor of this, particularly if this is being asked to be done for the fields, for several different reasons. One, I think we need to make sure that we're protecting the naming rights of sponsors and individuals who have made some very significant positive contributions to the fields. A donation is not what any of the naming rights we're looking for. The committee itself has already been reducing a lot of, call it cosmetic, because we have things that we're still trying to fundraise for that are needed, right? Like dugouts and so forth. So I don't think a donation is in the spirit. We wouldn't have accepted it. I think it should be reconsidered that we're still trying to raise $80,000 for the necessities of the project. So that's one. I think we really need to protect the naming rights for all of those corporations and individuals that have contributed to the project itself, right, and the necessities of the project. not something is a statue, is cosmetic, it's not necessary. Number two, you know, I can't fathom, I'd like to know why Mr. Quinty would want to have his name associated with fields that he for years campaigned against. We have these beautiful fields for our students in spite of everything that Mr. Quinty did. All of those behaviors, all of the negative impact that he did actively campaigning, vote after vote after vote, enormous displays for vote no at every single vote, writing letters to all the newspapers to vote no, delayed this project for 5 years, cost us more for less. So I can't even fathom why he would want the Quinty name associated with fields that he campaigned and misled the public about. And it's just inappropriate. It's inappropriate.
Are those questions or just comments?
Those are my comments. I'll certainly be voting no. If this were to be a statue donated to the school, I think that could be one thing. In no way, absolutely no way, should this be associated with our fields.
I think this went to the Fields Committee, and unfortunately Michelle Granger is not here tonight. I would like to hear her reference at a meeting. I don't think that we need to approve or disapprove this tonight. My concern was that the association of accepting the statue and the associated costs that would be for the base, the placement, and not having a number with that would totally cover it, so it wouldn't impact any budgets in the school, is where I was coming from. Erica, you look like you're...
Yeah, I was gonna say, my question was, and it's just because I'm new to the committee, I wanted the understanding of, are we always supposed to have a dollar figure when we're doing the consent agenda? Like, I just was looking for the standard process on what that looks like. So that was the only question that I had for this segment was, do we have to have a specific dollar amount associated when we have something on the consent agenda? That's going to be my question. If you're asked, I don't know if you have an answer, if you have to ask and ask, but I just was looking for procedure.
And I ran out of time today too, and they didn't get back to me, but I was kind of late in doing it.
Oh no, I didn't want to highlight that. I was just
no,
saying.
So I think that was my question also, because usually we have a number amount associated with it, and that's what I was concerned about. And my information, and I don't want to speak to for the Fields Committee, excuse me, for the Fields Committee, and I'd like to hear from them as to what their reaction would be. So until we hear...
I'm a member of the committee. Michelle's chairing it, but I was at the last meeting, and I'm a member of the committee.
Mm-hmm.
It was initially, the first thing was it was sent back to the school committee because it needed to be voted on. Everything else that has any type of naming rights associated with it was approved by the school committee. Mm-hmm. So that was the number one thing that the building committee is looking for, is a vote from the school committee.
Okay. Anybody else? And I would take the will of the committee as to how they want to proceed.
I mean, I can appreciate that. I'm not on the building committee, and I'll be the first to say I have not done nearly as much for the Fields project as other members of this committee, other members of the community. It seems like a generous gift, which I think is, something that is worth recognizing. Like, I can only imagine how uncomfortable this is for, Jim, like your family is. Wanting to make a donation, I would assume, it's like a statue, so long as it fits. Is it problematic? I know there's other things we want to fundraise for. To the second point, I'm happy that's not so much of my concern. My question is like for the Fields Committee, is there worry about the statue and what it would do on the grounds and on the project? If not, are there other places that would value a statue? You know, I think generally I'd want to encourage generosity towards the schools, and I can also appreciate that there's other work that you want to do and you want to prioritize.
We have a lot of
those
other
projects.
grounds in the school, and, you know, there's a whole campus there that could be, you know, beautified, if you want to say something like that. And the Fields is pretty much already done and designated, so I don't know if they have a way to, or have a need to add something to it. So maybe the Fields Committee needs to give us a statement in relationship to this. So, and maybe Mr. Christie as to his feed in on this thing.
Madam Chair, if I may, this really is would be a school committee and Fields Committee decision, and I don't know if it would be fair to ask Mr. Christie for that really what would be.
Well, he's on the Fields Committee. He's part of the Fields Committee, so maybe that would be included in his opinion in that. If anybody feels what we should do tonight, please add your opinion. Jim, do you think that you, my problem is just understanding the total scope of the donation. The statute doesn't put it any place, doesn't establish it, doesn't anchor it, and things like that. So I just think it's a little incomplete, and I would like to hear more of a completion on it before we pass it.
Well, it could certainly be something similar to an MOU, right? Pretty much everything else that's come before us has had, you know, we've known the exact cost of anything. We don't have that here. The Fields Committee, we can't ask them to finalize in terms of dimensions of what they would approve. That was discussed at the last Fields Committee meeting. There was 3 different dimensions that were proposed, but we tabled it until we had a vote from the school committee. So if you want more details in any type of MOU, then I'm sure we can put that together.
Okay, so I just think it needs to be tightened up a little bit. It's just very open-ended, and to know exactly what we're doing and where we're going. Everything we did in this building was very much to the point, to the dollar, to the 10 cents, and I guess maybe that's where I'm coming from. If you wish to table this, if there's a motion to continue for continuance of this with further information, that would be one way to do it. But whatever the committee wishes to do.
I'll make a motion that we table this with the request of more information that has been identified as we've spoken about tonight.
Is there a second to that? If there's no second, then there's no.
I mean, I'm going to make an assumption that this would not pass tonight. I think we should have the conversation. Ultimately, I imagine it's a question of there's an opportunity for a resource to come to our school. And the question, I think, on the table is where and what that is. And that feels like the most pertinent thing to get clarified, but I mean, if there's something that can come and make our campus look great, there's plenty of things about that school, or about the field, that I think has been a source of pride for students and staff. This feels like it's something else that could be another source of pride to this campus. Yeah, I think it doesn't seem like there's votes. I'll second it. That we continue the conversation.
Vote second. If anybody wishes to make any other comments, questions, or information for this, seeing none, I would call for a vote to table this to maybe the November meeting, but I have something in my chairman's notes that may change that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining?
Abstain.
Abstaining, one abstention. And so we have a majority of vote. So thank you, and we will continue working on this. Other topics not reasonably anticipated within 48 hours. Is there anything from the administration or from the committee?
Not from administration.
Okay, thank you. I took a number of items like policies. There was a policy subcommittee meeting that was very successful, and going forward, we will have Section A, Section B, Section C, and Section D that have been reviewed. I've been polling the committee to see when we could get a quorum for an afternoon Zoom meeting and do policies at that time, and some of the other items that we kind of shuffled because we knew this meeting was going to be quite long. I'm losing my voice. So I will continue working on that and see what I can come up with. I really apologize. I call people at all kinds of unreasonable hours of the day and night, but that's just when I kind of get my act together. So excuse me. And if there's a better time, tell me when to call. Communications. Who's our communication person? Is that Erica?
Okay, I'm going to try and do my best, everybody. So on Monday, October 10th, there's no school in observance of Columbus and Indigenous Day.
Thank you.
On Tuesday, October 11th, progress reports are issued for 9th through 12th grades. On Wednesday, October 12th, there's a 90-minute early release. Lunch will be served. Dismissal for the high school and middle school is at 12:50 p.m. and for both elementary schools is at 1:45 p.m. On Friday, October 14th, the Dig Pink volleyball game and homecoming football game and Harold G. Norton Athletic Complex dedication happens. So the volleyball games are as follows. The JV volleyball game is at 3:30 and 4:15. The volleyball varsity game is at 5:15. The field dedication is at 5 p.m. and the football game is at 7 p.m. and again, that's on Friday, October 14th. On Saturday, October 15th is the homecoming dance from 7 to 10. And it says at the Airtown Hall, is it still there? Sorry,
Yes.
I didn't mean to question it.
No.
Okay, thank you.
As far as I know,
Michelle.
yes.
Yeah, so it's at
No.
Airtown Hall. Yes?
It's not here.
It is not.
It's
No, it's in the high school.
It's in the
because
high school?
The enrollment, the sign up was so large
That's what I
that
thought.
they had to move it to the high school. They also wanted to give the students a chance to invite their apprentice students from other schools here. So the Airtown Hall is not big enough, so it will be at the high school.
Okay, all right, that's why I was asking that question. Okay, so Saturday, October 15th, the homecoming dance will be here at the high school from 7 to 10. Thank you, Jim. Wednesday, October 19th, there's a half day of school for preschool through grade 12, and that's for professional development for teachers. Brown bag lunches will be available. Dismissal for high school and middle schools at 11:20, and the elementary schools is at 12:15. On Monday, October 24th, progress reports will be issued for preschool through 8th grade. On Tuesday, October 17th, there's a half day of school for grades 6 through 8th, and there will be parent-teacher conferences in the evening. On Friday, October 18th, there's a half day of school again for 6th through 8th. They're lucky. 6th through 8th grade, and afternoon conferences, parent-teacher conferences will be held. On Tuesday, November 1st is our next school committee meeting, but we just heard Joyce, and she's polling to have another school committee meeting during October, and that will be held at 6:30 in the LGI. On Monday, November 7th, there's a 90-minute early release. Lunch will be served. High school and middle school will get out at 12:50 p.m. The elementary schools will get out at 1:45. On Tuesday, November 8th, there is no school for grades preschool through 12 because there's professional development for teachers. And finally, Friday, November 11th, there's no school in observance of Veterans Day.
Thank you, Erica. Are those early release days, are those professional development also?
Yeah. Most of them. Some of them are
The
parent-teacher
conferences.
The 90-minute early release are professional development.
In October.
The half days are
Parent-teacher
conferences.
Thank you. We have no need for executive session.
No need for that.
And I would entertain a motion to adjourn at 9 by the computer, 9:36 by computer time.
I would like to adjourn at 9:36 p.m.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? I would doubt it.
I really want to talk policy for another 45 minutes.